Hello, everybody. As you know, today we're having a special guest, as you could tell by the title and all the hype we had in the Discord earlier. Today we're going to be joined by HomeTeamHistory. We're up to 51 viewers. That's the most we've had in YouTube, or not ever, but since I've started streaming on YouTube again by a lot. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Today we're joined by HomeTeamHistory. I'm sure most of you already know who he is. If you don't, he's here joining us now, and he will introduce you to his channel and himself and what he does.
Awesome. Hey, Jabari, I'm honored to be on here, and I really appreciate you inviting me. I think this is important to show that unity between the channels, between Afro-descended men in general. Just kind of paving the way in topics like this. So thank you so much for inviting me, man. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
My name is Derek, for those who may not know. I know I did a video earlier on, years ago, kind of introducing myself. I went to a private school in Huntsville, Alabama, and I got my degree in history. And then I went on to get my master's in social science. And I think when I did that, when I got my master's, it really helped me to, just gain access to different resources and just knowing how to research in general. So I think that really kind of enhanced my understanding of African history, or at least my perspective on African history in general. And I took it from there. I started teaching at this after school program in Washington, D.C. And, the kids there, they had really negative views about Africa when I started teaching it, and things of I had different presentations that I would present to them. And I saw that they had really negative views on Africa, African people, African history. And I was like, man, if these kids have negative views about Africa and African history, then they ultimately have negative views about themselves. And that really determines how they're going to navigate the world in general. So I decided, I need to try and do something, try and incorporate African history into popular culture. And, social media was kind of big at the time. 2013 is when I started, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but yeah. 2013, around that time. And I was just I was kind of doing it just to put more information out there on African history. Because, a lot of times when you're on social media, you kind of see more content on, Egypt or the Nile Valley in general. And people don't really focus on West and Central Africa, where we come from.
Yep.
So I wanted to focus more so on that. I still want to encompass all of African history, but I definitely wanted to focus more so on West and Central Africa, where we come from, because that's our ancestral significance, if you will. That's our inheritance. And so, I think it goes into our topic today too, because, we wanted to kind of discuss African themed media and popular culture. And that's definitely what I want to do. And I know that's definitely something that you're interested in as well, and that you're doing. And so, I'm really proud of the work that you've done and in this area. So, we paving the way, man.
Yeah. And I'm honestly impressed with everything you've been doing, especially these animations. I've always been an artist. I've always appreciated art. I've made it myself, and I appreciated it created by other people. And I'm not sure exactly how yours is, whether you make it yourself, you commission it, but regardless of how you do it, I'm impressed by it, and it is extremely important and positive, because like you said, if we're not proud of our history or where we come from, we're not proud of ourselves. And I think that's what leads to a lot of the negativity that Black people in America view about themselves and the world, Black people in general. And obviously, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of Black people here in America have just a negative outlook on the world in general. And I think a lot of it is just not being proud of where we come from. Everything we learn about our history is negative all the time. We never see anything positive about it. And we're constantly on this mission to detach ourselves or associate ourselves with someone other than who we actually are. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where some alternative narratives come from, because we're really trying to seek an identity and a self-esteem ultimately, because we've been told we're less than ultimately for our entire lives in popular culture and music, everything in the literature, everything you see is very negative. There was a study done a long time ago about how young kids young kids of African descent, when they watch TV, like their self-esteem like just plummets because of that imagery. And it just goes to show how important that is in our community, because that if you don't have knowledge of self, if you will, if you don't have, you know, an understanding of who you are, where you come from, and that confidence in who you are, then that defines how you're going to move throughout the world ultimately. Everything.
As Jacob just said, we don't come from nothing. You know,
exactly.
I want everybody to know we don't come from nothing. It's really that simple. But it's like when you go to school as a white person, for example, you learn about the Greeks, the Romans, Benjamin Franklin, great explorers finding new lands and new species, islands that you're not learning about all this great stuff. But if you ask somebody to name one thing great done by a black man, 99% of the time, it's going to be something that happened as a struggle against oppression, like Martin Luther King. And it's like, it's not me downplaying these people. These people were heroes. Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, all these people were heroes. But there's more to our history than just our struggle against other people. There's a lot more to it.
Absolutely.
And we never talk about it. We don't see movies about it. We don't see games about it. We don't grow up seeing this black hero in a cartoon like you were describing earlier. All of our heroes, all of our beauty standards are based off of people who don't look like us. So exactly. And I think, to be honest, like there isn't a problem like showing those, like, I guess those slave narrative type movies, or those because they are important. They are important.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just not everything. They're not everything.
Exactly. Those stories need to be told, but like you have to show the full scope of our humanity, like show the full story. And to me, the problem with Eurocentrism is that the dangerous thing is the omissions, because even when they try to be honest, they omit a lot of things, and that really like distorts the context and the perspective. So the omissions are very crucial, to be honest. So
or they summarize things. They overly simplify them. I noticed that happens a lot too. They don't get into like when they're talking about, I don't know, some war between France and Britain. They'll talk about names of generals and tactics and battles, and it can be a very well documented battle from 14th century Mali, for example, but all they talk about is a brief overview, like a broad summary of what happened. They don't mention names of people, how their thrones looked, what clothes they were wearing, you know, or love affairs, whatever. They don't talk about the stuff, even though there's plenty of information about that. Just nobody out there, black or white, unfortunately, is really willing to dive that deep. Like, honestly, as happy as I am to be where I am as far as my contributions to that stuff, it's sad that I am, because I'm just a regular old human being at my house.
Exactly, me too.
So,
exactly, no, I totally get what you're saying. And low-key, I'm kind of ashamed, because like the Battle of Karina video that I did, like it just kind of happened. Like I didn't plan to do it like at all, because I was just like reading some material, and the source is A Military History of Africa. Oh, nice. I don't know if you heard of that book, but I highly recommend that book. So anyway, I was just reading through it, and he was talking about Sunjata, right? And I was just like, oh, okay, he's just gonna kind of mention the Battle of Karina and Sumaguru Kante, blah blah blah. But you know, he had sources about like actual details of the battle. Yeah. And I've never heard that before, and I was just like, my mind just kind of exploded, and I was really excited about it. But I was like, man, like I never even expected him to go into detail about that,
because all you ever see is the overviews, and whenever I find I'm the same way. Whenever I see, like, for example, I saw a thing describing how the Mansas of Mali, how their throne looked, you know, I'm like, wait, what? So or like what clothes they were wearing at the time that they did this certain thing.
Exactly.
The quotes they said, like things they specifically said that were recorded, like, oh, he said this to this person. You know, we don't. It's never that level of detail. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really exciting when you see it too, as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. Those things definitely need to be documented. And I do feel like we should put a little more pressure on like African scholars. I don't know if it's because they're not popular or because they're not putting the information out there, or I'm just not finding it.
I think it's a combination of. I think it's a combination of both. They're not popular. Plus, they're not a lot of people putting it out there. I think it's a combination of both.
that's why whenever I see one, like I really try to, because I know Sheikh Ante Diop, the Senegalese scholar, he wrote a lot about like the details of Mali and Songhai and the throne, as you were saying, and what the Manzo was actually wearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I thought that was really dope. So those things are very, very important, and I think they can come more so from African scholars because they have immediate access to it, if you will.
Yeah. So real quick, to everybody in the chat, we will be answering questions. We're just trying to get everything laid out first. We're not ignoring you, I promise. But we just got a few things we want to do first, and there'll be plenty of time and plenty of questions and answers happening. I promise you.
Yeah, we definitely want to answer all the questions too, because we want that kind of to be the bulk of this dialogue.
Yeah. So also, since while we're on the subject of the Epic of Sunjata, for those of you who haven't seen it, we're gonna play that for you. So HomeTeamHistory, he created an animation on the Epic of Sunjata, and I think it was epic. I loved it. No pun intended with saying it's epic, but it was pretty awesome. So we'll bring that up right now. Who all has seen it, by the way? I'm just curious. And who all here is unfamiliar with Home Team? Because I'm pretty sure that number's probably gonna be like 0, and if it's not 0, it's probably like maybe 1. I love the animation too. Easily his best work. Yeah, it was. I'm really liking these animations you're releasing frequently like this. Like that's what I aspire to be eventually. I aspire to, if or whenever I do become full-time. I'm assuming you probably are full-time now, right?
Yeah. Recently, yeah. I
That's
dedicated.
Awesome. I'm jealous.
If you, bro, it took me years to get here, man.
Yeah. You earned it. You earned it. Definitely.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. I really do. I appreciate that, and it's definitely all through the support of my patrons and people who view my video, because I literally use their money to create, the animation. Like
exactly. I always want to stress that to my patrons and my supporters. Like everything that you're doing is helping me improve my content, and I never feel like I adequately express my gratitude. Whenever I'm saying thank you, it still just never feels like enough. I know that sounds cliche as hell, but I'm just being honest.
I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah,
because this would definitely be like a passion of ours in general, like to create African history and popular culture incorporated.
And they're literally paying us for it. They're paying us to do what we love to do. So
exactly, definitely.
So let's go ahead and bring up that animation. Yeah, there we go. I really like the format of it because it reminded me of like Kings and Generals, And Kings and Generals, despite the fact that they release like a new video every single week, they never cover African civilizations. They cover just about every part of the world but sub-Saharan Africa. The only Africans they've ever, I'm not trying to trash talk them, but the only Africans they've ever covered were ones involved with Eurasians, like Ganabo from Russia. I'm not sure if you watch any of their content, but like Ganabo from Russia.
Are you kidding me? That's what inspired me to like really be like, hey, this is kind of a format that we can use in our community to create content. Like, absolutely, definitely.
Yeah. So it's like, I've talked to some of them directly, actually. I've had some join the server before and ask me questions and stuff. And then I'm just like, are you guys going to do a video on an African civilization, though? And they say, there's not enough demand for that. There's not enough people asking for that. It's like, but every other part of the world that had civilizations, you make videos on those. But not Africa. Okay, got it. Like, anyway.
Look, honestly, Jabari, I think I told you this before, too. Yeah. Like, I don't want them to make content on Africa. I want it to be you and I, or somebody else, of African descent. Like, we need to be the leaders in this, and the pioneers in this space. So, yeah.
Yeah, we had some slightly conflicting views on this. Some people in the community know about this because they've asked about this, and I've told them.
Yeah.
And I've told you that I've told them. But, for me, I think regardless of if you're black or white or whatever, if you have something to offer, I'm willing and happy to work with you if you have something to offer. At the same time, I don't feel like I don't need the help. I'm not. Please help me. I'm not begging for help. That's the kind of thing. That's what makes my viewpoint on all that. So.
Yeah. One quick comment before we watch the video. I totally get what you're saying. I totally understand that. I think it stems from, the insecurity complex that, our children have, or, the younger people in our generation. And that's kind of where my paradigm began, when I started teaching the kids and the imagery that they saw. And I feel like there was this one instance where, like, I just came from work and I went to I think it was like one of my ex-girlfriends or whatever. I was visiting because she was like doing a Zumba class for this after school program. And I walked in and I was dressed up for work or whatever, just kind of visiting her.
Yeah.
And like, I would do that like maybe once or twice a week. And then I just kind of stopped doing it or whatever. I forgot what happened. But yeah, they came to her and it was like, hey, who's that young man that came in all dressed up, blah, blah, blah. Like, we want him to come back, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? And she was like, yeah, like they're really kind of, I don't want to say desperate, but, lack of a better term, like they were desperate for that imagery of, just Black men in general, kind of just being in that space, kind of just showing that, hey, you can be more than where you come from ultimately,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like where I draw my inspiration for my paradigm, because like, hey, we need to be the ones that are pioneering this space, because they need to see us, those kids that I taught, they need to see us doing stuff like this, because if kings and generals, if they do it, it's just kind of like, oh, the same old, like only white people can do this or whatever.
Yeah.
Or non-Black people can do this. And they're the ones that have that agency in this space, if you will. So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. It's cool. I'm pretty much done with my point.
Well, see, the thing is, I completely agree with that part of it. Like, for example, I have people supporting me. The most active, easily the most active person in my live streams isn't even Black, like a lot of my moderators and my server aren't Black. So for me, like I understand the whole like I'm not waiting on kings and generals to do it. I'm not waiting on Disney to release a movie. I want it, but I'm not waiting on it or thinking that's the only way that we can accomplish what we want. For me, it's like I welcome it if people actually are passionate about it, regardless of their color. But for example, my content, I have people of other colors helping me and supporting me. Hence why I brought the most active viewers and the moderators, not some of them not being Black. I have those. I'm okay with those. I'm open to those, but I'm still the face of what I do. This is still my content, So that image that you want of the Black person telling our story and doing it the way we want to do it, I'm still doing that. But sometimes when I have people who aren't Black or aren't of African descent there to offer something to the table with my face stamped on top of it, that's why I do what it is. I'll give people their credit. I'll give their credit where it's due, and their contributions and everything. But either way, it's my show, So
no, that's what's up, man. Absolutely. I think you're doing an excellent job. So definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and so are you. Like, you're definitely easily. I mean, I could be, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're easily the face of African history on YouTube, as far as I'm concerned. I can't. I mean, do you know of any other channels bigger than yours or more popular than yours? I can't think of any.
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. I really do.
And it's funny because I remember back when my channel was small, probably maybe a few hundred subscribers, maybe 1,000 tops. I remember commenting your videos. I think you were maybe like, 7,000, 10,000 subscribers at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember commenting your video, and, I was just thinking, oh, big YouTube channel, and I never thought you or me would progress this far into this subject and reach out to so many like-minded people. Honestly, as sad as it sounds, I didn't have that kind of hope in that.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted it. I had the passion. The passion was there, and it wasn't going anywhere. But I didn't.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because I felt the same exact way. When I started initially, I thought it was going to be a small, tight-knit community of African history enthusiasts, if you will.
Yeah.
And, I was just going to have dialogue with them ultimately on this small platform. But then, I just continued to gain more support from the diaspora. And honestly, if it wasn't for them, like, Home Team History doesn't exist. Their interests and their support. And I'm sure the same goes for you as well. So, like, they are an important piece of what we're doing. And I feel so proud because, like, I feel like we're kind of doing it all together. Because they sort of give me, the support, and I'm able to create, the content ultimately and dedicate time to it, So,
and as you said in our last discussion, united front. Whether it's me or you or me and these 80 people watching us right now, united front, we're all here for the same purpose. We're all something to contribute.
Yeah.
And it's just we appreciate. By the way, this is a record high for this channel. By the way,
Oh wow.
the highest we've ever gotten before this was 64 viewers, and that was after I hadn't streamed in months, and I did a quarantine stream for COVID, an unplanned quarantine stream. So yeah, we beat that by 20 viewers now. So appreciate it. If you guys are enjoying the stream, go ahead and drop us a like. And if you are unfamiliar with Home Team, which I doubt many people here are, go ahead and follow him on YouTube. He produces content a lot more frequently than I do, unfortunately, because unfortunately I'm not full time as much as I want to be.
Bro, you'll get there definitely.
I hope so. Appreciate the $5 donation, Afro Anime. Thank you so much. Bear in mind, by the way, when you do those $5 donations, you can leave a custom message, and I will see it because it's very bright and obvious. So, and if you, regardless if we're taking questions and answers or not, if you donate, I'll respond to it. So,
hey, look, I can't wait to get to the questions, man. To be honest, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this. Let's go ahead and play this epic of Sunjata video then, real quick. Just so for those of you who haven't seen it, we're gonna play it right now. So let's go ahead and switch to the scene. Let's switch scenes. All right. Whoa. Okay. That's not what I meant to do. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and play it now.
The ancient kingdom of Wagadu, West Africa's first significant state, began forming from a small kingdom into an empire around 600 CE. The Soninka people were among the first of the Mande-speaking ethnic groups to cultivate iron and use it to their military advantage, making vassals of other Africans in the region, especially the Mandinka. But like all empires, Wagadu began to fall in 1100 CE, and many of the vassals began to break away. Among them were the people of Soso under their ruler Sumunguru Kante. Mandinka griots speak very clearly about how powerful and ruthless Sumunguru was. He wrested power away from Wagadu, conquering their capital at Kumbi Sela in 1224. This victory made him the most powerful and the most feared ruler among the former vassal states. In the lands of Mima, a young Mandinka prince named Sunjata Keita begins to gain the favor of the local ruler. Though exiled from his homeland, the Mandinka were desperate and begged Sunjata to help them fight the growing dominance of Sumunguru. Sunjata was all too eager to join, as this was his opportunity to prove his worth and possibly become the ruler he was prophesied to be. The ruler of Mima aided Sunjata by supplying him with an army, the core of which were composed of cavalry. Sunjata began moving toward the southern town of Tabon. Along the way, he generated more support and brought a number of Mandinka clans under his leadership. As Sunjata continued his march, he was expected to be joined by more forces of the local ruler in Tabon. With a unified Mandinka front, this news certainly got the ear of Sumunguru. Sumunguru quickly gathered footmen from Soso who blocked the valley that led to Tabon. As they began setting up camp, oral historians tell us that Sunjata laughed at them and proclaimed that no mere infantryman was going to stop his advance. Sunjata went on the offensive and personally led a cavalry charge which surprised the Soso infantry, who assumed the battle would take place the next day. Sunjata quickly broke the infantry line, and griots tell us in poetic fashion how fiercely the young prince fought.
Mic off.
Sunjata was in the middle of the Sosos, like a lion in the sheepfold. Sunjata and his men continued on the warpath. With his new force reinforced by the men of Tabon, Sumunguru came out to meet the young prince on the battlefield. Sumunguru arrived at Negaboria in present-day Guinea. It was there that he found Sunjata. Sumanguru was humiliated by the great slaughter Sunjata unleashed upon the mighty Soso near Tabon. No army was able to halt the supreme military might of Soso. He began deploying his men along a narrow valley, with the flanks occupying both slopes. Sunjata, organizing his men into a square formation with cavalry at the front and archers in the rear, led a ferocious charge against the center Soso line, which initially held, but after some hand-to-hand fighting, appeared to buckle. Upon Sumanguru's orders, the Soso flanking units swept down into the valley with great speed, attempting to encircle Sunjata. However, Sunjata had predicted this, and his prepared army quickly changed formation, with the archers reinforcing the flanks, intercepting the Soso rush with a violent volley of arrows. Sunjata's arrows inflicted serious casualties to the Soso, and they began to retreat. Sunjata's reserve cavalry forces counterattacked and pursued the fleeing Soso on the flanks, while the archers turned their attention on the center of the Soso line, breaking the will of the Soso. Sumanguru retreats with his army, but Sunjata, curiously, does not pursue the Soso. Sunjata takes his time and finds the Soso army encamped near Bamako. It was here that the famous Battle of Karina took place. The previous night, the Soso launched a surprise attack on Sunjata's camp, but Sunjata's archers were able to repel the attack with a volley of flaming arrows. By dawn, Sunjata's cavalry began charging and broke the horsemen at the center of the large Soso force. The engagement was going well for the young prince, as his charging cavalry was saving the day. However, Sumanguru would not be undone. He deployed his large reserve, which began to push back Sunjata's forces. One by one they fell. The Mandinka were on the verge of annihilation. But great luck struck down on the young prince. In a last-ditch effort, Sunjata rallied his men to stand their ground against the Soso. It was at this critical moment that Sunjata saw an opportunity. Sunjata pointed his arrow directly at Sumanguru. He was confident at his target because the Soso ruler wore an obnoxiously large and tall headdress. The arrow pierced Sumanguru. Battered and wounded, the Soso ruler fled, and in panic, his army with him. The Mandinka had now become the conquerors. A small kingdom under vassalage for centuries now reigned supreme as Sunjata unified the Mandinka and formed a new empire called the Mandan Kurufaba, or the Mali Empire. If you like this video and want to help the Home Team produce more like it, consider supporting the Home Team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.
So, yeah, like I was saying, for those who have not seen that video.
Mic on.
For those who haven't seen that video, it was epic. Like, we don't have anything like that anywhere. I have never seen anything close to that on YouTube for African history. I've seen it for just about every part of the world but African history. So
yeah, definitely. And I really tried to make it as, what's a good word for it?
Immersive, I guess.
Yeah, immersive. I feel like you do a really good job of really immersing your audience into, your content. So I definitely tried to make it as immersive as possible and interactive, if you will, with the sounds and, the movement, blah, blah, blah. But I also tried to make sure the icons were African pretty much. Because, when you think of a sword, you usually think of a European sword.
I was actually gonna comment on that. I was gonna comment on how you had the cavalry units. You used a silhouette of a Malian sculpture. I noticed that.
Yeah.
I was just that attention to detail was impressive. That's what I love.
Yeah.
I really loved that.
Exactly. It's a whole paradigm shift, if you will. Because when we think of a crown, when we think of a horse or a sword, we always think of I guess the European version of that, which is fine or whatever. But ultimately, when you create content like this, it has to be as authentic as possible, or it'll just be another colonization, if you will, of African content. So yeah, I thought that was important.
I just want to scroll back up real quick for that $5 donation we got during the video, by the way. Arthur, appreciate the donation. Haven't heard from you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Arthur's one of the Titan Tribble, more specifically, is one from the team members. He's haven't heard from him in a while, but glad to see you here, and thank you for the $5 donation. But sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, I just try to keep it as African as possible, definitely. So, and it took me some months to really save up my patrons' funds for that video. So that's why, like, when you see my animation, it's like I do it like in 1 month, and then maybe 6 months later, maybe another one comes out. Hopefully, it just depends. But it's real. It looks real simple, but it was really expensive. Animation is just like expensive, man. Like, it's crazy.
As someone who has animated before, as somebody who makes art, I know my camera's out of focus. I know how it feels, I know how time consuming and strenuous it is to do that stuff. So my camera's still not focusing. I don't know why, but yeah. But yeah, so to pay, I'm kind of right there at myself. Even though I am an artist and I do animate, if I do that all myself, there's only so much I can do myself before I stretch myself too thin. So I'm the same way. Like these awesome backgrounds you see, as much as I would love to take credit for them, I didn't make them. I paid somebody to do it for me. Because if I spent the time doing it myself, I wouldn't have time to do everything else I do with this channel. So.
No, yeah, exactly. You have to outsource a lot of the content ultimately. When you do it. So I totally understand that, definitely, and it's dope, man. I think it's great. I love it. And
I appreciate that. Same with yours, But not to waste any more time, though. I know you're ready to get for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and jump into that.
So. Well, actually, before we get into that, not to be directing this whole live stream, but because I wanted to make a comment on at least what people feel about. Because in my opinion, when they make videos, animation on when they try to include Black people into their animation, a lot of time what I've been seeing, at least more recently, is that the character kind of starts out as a human and then they end up as like some object or animal or inanimate being, whatever. To me, that's horrible in my personal opinion. I kind of want to get some of the insight from you or some of the people in the comment section or whatever, what you guys felt about that.
It's that narrative that everything in Africa automatically means tribal or primitive or primal, rather than having a strictly defined thought process of being human beings separated from nature. That's a concept that people tend to think was absent in Africa, but it's not true. A lot of cases it is, but not in every case. So yeah, to me, it's really disturbing, ultimately, because even with the new Disney movie, I think it's called Soul or Spirit or something like that.
Sade. It's called what?
Sade, Sade. I think it's a
really?
I think it's a Hausa name. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm thinking I don't know if we're talking about the same one, because it's like he starts off as a musician.
That's different. Definitely.
And then I think he dies or something like that, at least from the trailer. And then it would seem as though for the majority of the movie he's gonna be like some sort of spirit or ghost.
Okay.
And it's just kind of they're following that same trend. Even with Will Smith, when he was in that detective joint, he turns into like a penguin.
Yeah,
and then not a penguin, a bird or whatever. And then even with one of the first ones, the Black Princess, whatever, she turns into a frog.
Yeah,
it's just like why are these?
And then it's based on a European legend, by the way. And on top of that, they couldn't even make her prince black. They made him some made up country because.
Yeah, he was kind of ambiguous. Yeah.
Yeah, and then voodoo, the villain practiced voodoo as the evil villain practiced voodoo. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
man.
But I haven't heard about Soul. I'll have to look into that. I had no idea.
Yeah, look it up and tell me what you think.
I will. Yeah, but yeah, he was Creole. But the thing is, what I'm saying, Metro, I'm kind of sort of getting into the comments already. But yeah, he was Creole, but he was voodoo and he was a villain, and he used voodoo for evil. He perpetuated that stereotype that voodoo is an evil religion.
Yeah, definitely. African like spirituality is definitely demonized, especially because, when Islam entered and Christianity entered, like they just really demonized that spirituality. And to me, they're very similar as far as, not similar, African spirituality is just as valid as any other spiritual concept or religion, ultimately. So
it's like the video that I made about Ifa corpus of the Yoruba. When you compare that to Abrahamic religions, for example, those religions basically want you to trust and have faith and confidence in another human being, like they are the all-knowing, they are the messenger of God. Whereas Ifa corpus, the priests, their sole role is to perform mathematical calculations, and whatever those calculations match up with, whatever verse they match up with, they will read that out to you.
Wow.
So, versus I'm the all-knowing, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, like Abrahamic religions do. But those religions still get criticized. Like that whole concept is based on binary code, which is what we're seeing right now and doing right now is only possible by binary code. And that's what they're using for their religious divinations. That's what the Chinese used for theirs as well.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting. I never really looked in much into that at all. So thanks for sharing that.
I honestly didn't either. And don't thank me, thank my patron who requested it. I had no idea. So
yeah, that's dope, man. That's dope. To be honest, my theory is when it comes to, how Africa was oppressed and people of African descent were oppressed for so long. And this is kind of like my overarching theory, if you will. You can tear it up if you like.
Okay.
But I think it was ultimately they don't want to compete with us ultimately, because I think when they left their continent and traveled around the world, they saw civilizations that were older than theirs, and the people that lived there, they had a lot of resources and land ultimately, and ultimately that's wealth to a European. And in general, yes, that is wealth. So like when you have like nearly all the resources on the planet, you have a lot of land, and you have an older civilization, in a sense, a head start. Why would you want to compete with a group of people like that?
It's not really worth it. It's the same with when Europeans encountered East Asian civilizations. They didn't bother. They just they wanted to establish dominance over trade and stuff, but as far as full scale like colonization of them, Africa was probably a little bit lesser on that though for them, because they did eventually colonize Africa, but after hundreds of years of interaction with them, and also only for a very small amount of time. Because it just wasn't worth it.
People forget that.
Yeah.
Colonization was actually a small block in time.
It was small, and it was also very late compared to the colonization that happened in the Americas, for example. It happened in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Unfortunately, despite the short time, it did have a huge impact on Africa, a huge and negative impact on Africa.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think with when it came to Africa, because of the diversity, it was a lot easier to colonize, like definitely. And Africans helped Europeans colonize Africa.
Yeah, divide and conquer. That's how they did it. I'm actually working on a video about that right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, where I talk about how the early encounters between Africans and Europeans were actually pretty difficult for the Europeans, and how they had to learn and incorporate indigenous African techniques and weaponry and so on and so forth in order to be able to establish any sort of dominance whatsoever.
Yeah,
that was their only way.
Portuguese.
Yeah, the Portuguese. Yeah. That's who I'm going to be talking about. Portuguese and Central Africans.
Yeah, nice, awesome, man, good stuff.
So it's like we like to automatically throw Africa into that box, like Native Americans, like the Inca and the Maya. Like, oh, the Europeans just showed up with their guns and their diseases and killed them. No, first of all, the disease thing was totally opposite. The Europeans were the ones dying of diseases. Second of all, Africans were pretty much on the same level, for the most part, as Europeans during that time, until modern weapons. I mean, yeah, Europeans had some higher... They did have some technology that Africans didn't have, but it wasn't to a point where it was completely overwhelming.
Bro, no, and I totally agree, especially when the early Europeans came, because they can't... But what was bad was when the Portuguese came or whatever. I mean, bad for them, because like the Portuguese struggled a lot, and they got the business a
They
lot
did.
of times.
They did.
In Africa.
In
And
all
a lot
parts of
people
Africa,
don't
West
know that.
Africa, Central Africa, East Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why they couldn't really colonize as good as the other European nations or whatever. And by that time, a lot of the larger kingdoms and empires, completely collapsed, making it easier. So
Which
Yeah.
is, and that's why they had to rely so much on divide and conquer. It's like
exactly.
make it, I mean, it's the same thing, and this isn't me downplaying Native American civilizations, by the way, because even in like the Aztec Empire, for example, they had to ally with enemies of the Aztec in order to defeat them. Let alone Africans who had the same weapons as they had, minus the guns. They had the same. They had swords. They had iron spears. They had armor. They had horses. So, at least in some parts. And so you can only imagine it would have been just as difficult, if not more, than the difficulties they had with the Aztecs. So
Yeah, definitely. And that's why, to me, the Battle of Islandwandla, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I know I'd be crucifying these African names. I think that's why that battle was just so significant, man, because it just kind of proved the ingenuity of African warfare, their intelligence, their strategic generals and things of that nature. Like, that battle was incredible. And yeah, that's why the Zulu, I feel, are very famous today.
Yeah, like the Zulu, though I agree with you, I also think they're overrated. I think it's...
Oh, really?
I do, yes.
Oh, wow, okay. That's interesting.
I think they're overrated because I think there are a lot more impressive civilizations militarily than them, for one. Two...
Like who? Like, name one.
Like the Ashanti.
Okay.
Well,
look, no. The Ashanti, they don't have that glory like the Zulu have, though.
The overratedness or the glory? Like,
The
what
glory.
is the
I mean,
difference?
I guess it was just like one battle. I guess you can say for the Zulu, they got one battle. Like,
the
they
Ashanti
just
got multiple battles, though.
You're right. I feel you.
But also, just the Zulu. One thing that bothers me the most about them, as far as their popularity, is that people look at them as the best of the best.
Yeah,
which is
agree.
the typical spear chucking, animal skin wearing African who doesn't. Actually, they didn't even throw spears. They had short stabbing spears. They didn't use bows and arrows. Shaka Zulu didn't believe in bows and arrows or any ranged weapons at all because he thought it made his troops cowards. Which is it's genius to force your troops to be brave, but at the same time, it's like I want people to realize that there was more. What's the word? There was higher technological innovation, better architecture, better structure. Not better in every single way, obviously. I'm just saying there are better examples that you can put on the table as the face of sub-Saharan African civilization than the Zulu. And most people default to Zulu when they think of sub-Saharan Africa. That's why I think they're overrated.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I see what you're saying with that, and I think Shaka Zulu's his upbringing really kind of defined his strategy about how he wanted to go about conquering, how he wanted to organize his military in general. Because growing up, he was denigrated, he was illegitimate, and he was seen as weak, and all those things. So he really wanted to really increase his name, his legacy, and show the people that he and his unit are the real dudes, if you will. And so I feel like that kind of had some influence on why he just wanted to go brute force. I can beat you man on man. I don't need nothing else type of thing, And
see, the thing is, I agree with that, but at the same time, he's not the only example of that. Sunjata Keita, same thing we just talked about, was the same way. He was born a cripple. He couldn't even walk.
Yeah.
He couldn't even walk, and he led an army to defeat the Susu and make the largest empire that Africa had ever seen at that time.
Yeah. So. But Sunjata, there was an extensive history of Mandinka warfare before him that he kind of pulled from. He didn't need to sort of reinvent the wheel.
So he didn't revolutionize it. Yeah.
Shaka, he changed the whole culture. So, that there's an aspect there as well.
Even still, though, let me put the Ikwa, which is their short stabbing spear, that Shaka Zulu invented. That was basically, in my opinion, a predecessor to a sword, which was already present in most of Africa. Swords, Southern Africa, stuff like that. It's like it just makes it seem like if they're the face of Africa, it makes it seem like Africa was inherently in a primal developing stage, So
look, I'm not gonna let you go on my Zulu. All right, so let's change the topic.
Okay. I was just saying, I mean, I've discussed them with appreciation for them before.
Yeah. No, I totally feel what you're saying though.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah.
So anyway, with all that being said, since I'm done insulting your Zulu, you ready for the Q&A, or you got anything else you want to talk about first?
Nah, yeah, definitely. I can't wait. You know, if anybody has questions, concerns, whatever, like let's definitely dive in.
All right. Home team history and From Nothing coming together, ready to answer any questions from any of the African history enthusiasts that exist here. We hit 100 viewers, by the way, which is crazy.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for it wouldn't have happened if you weren't here. Let me just put it that way. So, just being real. So, do you know these details of how iron and steel developed in sub-Saharan Africa? Do you speak a little about how it parallels with the development in India?
Oh yeah. I think I mentioned something like that in my video about, you know, contributions to just world history. I forget the title. I'm sorry, but yeah. I mean, I would have to look at my notes again because I never really like delved much into iron and steel. So, I don't know if you can figure one out.
You're in luck because we're actually working on a video about that topic, actually.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah, it's going to be a mapping video similar to the Ghana Mali Songhai one, but more simplified because it's just going to be the spread of iron technology. But basically, iron, as far as we know, as far as archaeology knows, iron use in Africa has not been proven to have diffused from Eurasia into Africa. All evidence points towards it being potentially, not conclusively, but potentially indigenously developed, and the Iron Age actually is contemporary with that in Europe and Asia, the African one. Like it happened like at roughly the same time, earlier in some places, later in some places. Actually, the oldest yet controversial sites date back to contemporary with the initial Eurasian invention of it in the Middle East.
Yeah.
As far as with India, all the techniques for iron production in Africa, one thing that points towards the indigenous development of it is the fact that it differs significantly from the techniques used to produce iron in Eurasia. The forges, the spiritual aspects of it, just in general, just the way that they create their steel and their iron differs significantly to the point where it doesn't look like it evolved or spread from somewhere else. If you want to simplify it.
Yeah.
Good enough. Actually, steel of the Haya people, dating back to over 2,000 years ago, was the amount of heat produced to make that steel was actually not even matched by Europeans until the 1800s. So.
Yeah, and that was in Tanzania, right?
Yeah, Tanzania.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But
yeah, man. I mean, no, go ahead. My fault.
Sorry, real quick though, Afro Anime, thank you for the $5 donation. Nations in Africa was the first to embrace gender equality. Most people never realized how men and women ruled side by side. I find it very unique. Yes, Africa was definitely, as a whole, a very matrilineal society and put a lot more emphasis on the importance of women than most parts of Eurasia, at least.
Yeah.
But go on.
I have a question myself, actually. I don't know if I count, but when people talk about like Eurasia, what exactly does a Eurasian look like? Like, what is a Eurasian?
Well, when I say Eurasia, I'm more referring to the societies that have historically been tied with one another, whether it be by the Silk Road, warfare, Mongols, whatever. That would be from Europe all the way to Asia. So several different ethnic groups in physical phenotypes, but historically and culturally tied through history. The Bronze Age, the Iron Age, all that stuff, farming, they typically spread throughout that parallel of the world, from China to Europe and vice versa.
Yeah, because to be honest, the way I've been seeing it like used, I feel like people insert a sort of Eurasian model anytime they can't really understand African history or they want to discredit African history. They just kind of throw in that word Eurasian.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, it was never really defined, at least from my understanding. So it's, to me, there seems to be like there needs to be more work done on defining what a Eurasian is and what these, because people say, oh, these people have Eurasian ancestry, blah blah blah. And in my personal opinion, like, you know, when Africans left Africa, it would seem as though some of them came back or whatever, and then they call that, you know, Eurasian ancestry.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not a scientist, definitely not, but from what I see, I mean, if you leave the continent and like your DNA changes or shifts or whatever because of your diet or the environment, and then you come back, like that, did it not like change from an original African mold, if you will? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, the whole Eurasian thing is, I'm not really sold on what it is. So like, I kind of steer away from it, to be honest. But I feel like there just needs to be more work done on it, whatever that means.
I think it's just, as I said, for example, when people mention the Bronze Age, the Stone Age, the Iron Age, agriculture or Neolithic Revolution, when those things are mentioned, they are all in reference to the Eurasian supercontinent, because they all for the most part, obviously there's variation here and there, but for the most part, they all experience those things the same. The Mongol Empire, they experienced it the same. The Middle Ages, they roughly experienced it the same. You know, their armor, like their development, their entrance to the Industrial Revolution was roughly all the same. So when people say Eurasian, I think it's more specifically not necessarily referring to one particular people, but a large chunk of the human population of the old world. And in Africa, being separated both by the Sahara, though it did have interaction with them, it was significantly slower and more isolated because of the Sahara. Small camel caravans are going to be a lot less impactful than people being able to seamlessly move from east to west with like little to no issues.
Okay, how about this? So what if based on that sort of definition, can a Eurasian, in a sense, look like indistinguishable, I mean, from say an Ethiopian or Somali, or maybe from somebody from Sudan?
Physically, yes, I think they can. Hidden History just asked you a question if you're reading the chat, by the way. I'm pretty sure you are, but...
Okay. My bad. I missed it. I'm sorry. I was so engrossed. Yeah, I'm reading the chat occasionally, I guess. What's up, Hidden History?
And we're sorry. I said we're going to move on to questions, and we end up going into another discussion, but I'll try to pay more attention. But,
yeah, let's continue. My bad. I asked a question. I messed
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's no rules with this, you know. We just do it, or let me phrase it. We're the ones hosting this stream. We do it the way we want to do it, but at the same time, let's try to answer the questions of the viewers too. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So like an Ethiopian, like you were saying though, Ethiopian, Somalian stuff. I feel where you're getting at with this. When people look at Egyptians, for example, that's one of the most controversial. They look and say, oh, they came from Eurasia. They're Eurasian. They have Eurasian features. You know, I get what you're saying with that. So when I use the term Eurasian, I'm specifically referring to a continuity in traditions and shared technology and cultures.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but that doesn't always necessarily have to do with physical appearance or looks. Like the Hausa, for example, a lot of people say are Eurasian or whatever, but they are undeniably, indisputably African people with African traditions. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So I see a question there from J. Cole 21 concerning mathematics in pre-colonial sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, actually, I think I did a video on that recently, talking about the Ishango bones and the Lubumbo bone, I believe. And I posed the question like, hey, like, you know, because there was one scholar that said, because of, you know, what they found, they believe that women may have been the earliest sort of mathematicians, or at least contributed to.
It was a lunar calendar for like the menstrual cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he suggested that, hey, women could have contributed to, you know, early mathematics on the continent or whatever. And I think it's really interesting idea in general. I wouldn't count it out because of the whole matrilineal philosophy of Africans in general. Now, you know, women had agency in those spaces and places, like I said in the video. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't count it out that a woman was women were involved in that process of early mathematics in pre-colonial Africa and ancient Africa. And in general, Timbuktu, they have a whole bunch of manuscripts that deal with math. Ultimately, there's math all throughout the continent. You can find it anywhere. So
just like that IFA corpus I talked about earlier with the binary code, that's some pretty complex. That's even for today's standards. That's some pretty complex math. That's how computers work.
Yeah, exactly. So
J. Cole said, "Oh my God, he noticed me." When you responded to him. I'm sorry if you're still going. Also, $5 KB Titan, been supporting you both for a while. Congrats, both of your sets. I remember seeing your name when I was small, and I saw like the same 4 people commenting my videos. You were one of those people. Appreciate you still being here after all this time, Titan. Thanks for not giving up on this channel. Appreciate it.
Nice. Oh, somebody said you're wrong. Red Book said you're wrong.
About
Red Book, what do you mean? What am I wrong about? I guess when he answers, there's somebody else that says, "Is Nvidia real writing?"
Oh yeah. What was the relationship between the Hafsid in Tunisia and the Empire of Khan and Bornu? As you know, Home Team will probably be better at answering this than me. I don't know. I'm not huge on North Africa. I know about the Empire of Khan and Bornu, but I have no idea about the Hafsid.
Yeah, I would say the founders. I think the Hafsid was either Amazigh or Arab, I believe. I've never really looked into it, so I would have to do research on that. But I don't think the founders were the same as Kanem Bornu or Borno. Pretty sure they weren't. So the founders, that's a huge difference there.
This is getting cool. Oh, it's just now getting cool. Okay, I see how it. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I think we need stuff like this.
Oh, Red Book was saying I was talking about someone else. Okay.
Oh. What other questions did we miss? Let's see. Let me scroll up a little. What was your opinion? What is your opinion calling North Africans invaders? I think that's just the way I see it. Is North Africa was most likely originally inhabited by people that we controversially call Nilo-Saharans. And
nice.
Also people who live in West Africa to this day, probably the Songhai people are one good example, and the Soninke, who originally founded Ghana. Most likely migrated from North Africa after it dried, but then people from the Mediterranean who came across from, and we'll say that again, Eurasia, inhabited the northern Mediterranean coast. And they weren't invaders, they just lived there and gradually spread across with their nomadic lifestyles. So
wait, repeat that last part. I'm sorry, I missed that one.
The people of the Mediterranean coast who don't look like the typical black Africans originally migrated farther south across the desert. Nomadic groups like I never say the word right, so I'm not going to try, but the Berbers. I'm just going to say the Berbers. And so the way I see it is they weren't invaders. Like a lot of people think, oh, they used to be black, but then the Arabs came, and no, that's not how it happened. There were people who looked like Arabs who had been there for thousands of years and weren't even Arabic, so it's to erroneously just say they were black and then Arabs came in and mixed with them and bred them out or whatever, I think is false, personally.
Yeah. For me, North Africa is so complex, man. Every video I do about North
Africa, it gives
Africa
me a headache thinking about it, honestly.
Yeah, it's always controversial. People always have, something to say, which I understand. If you have a critique, just definitely lay it out. I'm definitely open. But for me personally, North Africa, and this may sound controversial, like the people we see, like you were saying, the Songhai, the Soninka, and I feel like a lot of the Mande ethnic groups or whatever, and their subgroups, they all came from North Africa. They were originally in North Africa. Like they came down. Like if you listen to their oral history and their oral stories, a lot of them started off further north.
It's like in my mapping video of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, at the very beginning of that mapping, you see a little horseman ride down from the Hood region of the Sahara, which is barren today, but in the past, Like there are thousands of stone settlements there that couldn't be sustained today because it's too dry. But at one point they were wet, and that's where they lived, and they migrated down south because of that. So
exactly, and that's why I said, when I was talking about, why Africa fell and some of the reasons, my 5 gates theory, which people in the diaspora helped me to make as well. Like the desertification of Africa was devastating for a lot of different African people. Whole civilizations, in my personal opinion, were lost. Cultures were lost, and a lot of people moved further south. And even the Fulani say, like, it's theorized that some of them came from further north. Ultimately, if you look at the rock paintings in Algeria and Libya and stuff like that, like, you'll see people who we may consider as Black African people. Ultimately, so to me, it's obvious that the people in the Sahara region, I personally believe over time it became a little more diverse. It's even talking about it's complicated because me personally, I separate North Africa into prehistory, then ancient history. I know it's confusing. I only do that for me personally to understand it. When I say prehistory, I mean like the rock paintings. I know that's ancient history, but I like to separate it. And then I talk about ancient history. Now, to me, the ancient history is more the history
classical.
Of the Amazigh and the Berbers or whatever. They come more on the scene, or at least they seem more visible for whatever reason. And I believe that they are native to Africa as well. Africa has created a lot of different phenotypes, and we've seen that all throughout African history. Khoisan, all the way in the south, to their lighter skin, in their eyes, they're very different from the typical African that we may see in Nigeria, perhaps. Africa is the birthplace of humanity, in my personal opinion. And so it created a lot of different phenotypes, ultimately. And I think that's a beautiful thing about Africa, but I also think that's why Africa fell as well, because a lot of these different peoples and languages, they didn't identify with each other, fortunately. But yeah, hopefully I answered that question. But I do believe there were invaders in North Africa, definitely. Like when the Arabs came in and the Vandals, like all those people, the Romans, they were definitely invaders.
And
there's no doubt about it.
The thing is for me, as you said, it's complicated. A lot of people like that. People are simple. It's just the way we are. We like to simplify things as much as we can. A lot of our and so when people say Arabs invaded North Africa, whatever, and stuff like that, it's like North Africa, you got to remember, is larger than the United States. There were no cars, there were no planes. There were people on camels, there were people on horses, there were people on foot. So there wasn't just this giant wave that just said, "Oh, North Africa's black. Okay, guess what? Now it's not black anymore." It didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. So it's like there were multiple different things. Like
I would say yes and no. To me, it's complicated. I would say yes and no, but yeah, go ahead, continue.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, for example, the Arab. For one, when people say that North Africa became less black because of the Arabs, I think that is false. Because
I agree. Yeah, because there were people who looked like Arabs who were indigenous there and had been there for tens of thousands of years. For one, yes,
Two, you got to remember the Sahara. Despite the fact that it is relatively new in our timeline, it did separate black sub-Saharan Africa from lighter skinned, or whatever you want to call them, brown, white, whatever, northern Africa. It did separate them and isolate them into different pockets. It was a large place to travel across, especially for prehistoric humans who hadn't even domesticated camels yet, or even horses at that point.
It was a death sentence, and honestly, I think a lot of African civilizations further south, we have to sort of, in a sense, our ancestors, we have to give credit to a lot of those Amazigh populations who decided to navigate that, because they sort of connected us to the rest of the world. Not that we needed them, but yes, at the same time, we did need that as well for our economic stability.
One thing that I can't remember the source, I wish I did, but crossing the Sahara has been compared to in as more difficult than crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Because
I believe it. Yeah,
because crossing the Atlantic Ocean, you stock up a boat with a bunch of supplies and you go there.
Exactly.
The Sahara, there's only so much you can fit on the back of a horse. And then on top of that, you got to know where the next oasis is. You gotta know where the next places for food are if you forgot about figured about. And on top of that, you also have to navigate just as sophisticated as a mariner as you do when you're on the ocean. You gotta know the stars. You gotta know north, east, west, south. You gotta know all that stuff too. So
Yeah.
and on top of that, animals, camels, whatever you're using, walking on foot, you get tired. Animals get tired. Animals get thirsty. Boats don't get thirsty.
Yeah.
they just float. You can be sleeping and still make progress. You can't do that when you're riding animals that also get tired and need to sleep and get thirsty.
That's a good point.
Mansa Musa, his Hajj, for example, took several months. I can't remember exactly how long. I'm pretty sure it was like 4 or 5 months. Whereas Columbus crossing over to the Americas was like what, a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, I don't know how long that took.
And it was a greater distance, so.
Yeah. That's a good point, man. That's a good point. Definitely.
Yeah, plus boats are basically moving houses. Yeah, exactly. You have all your supplies, you have your water, you have your food, even animals, So. And on top of that, if you don't have enough, you're in the ocean, so you can fish. You can't just fish in the sand and hope you find something, You're going to find dirt.
Yeah.
Thanks to both of you for all of your hard work. Keep it up. Some of the gems you guys drop are priceless. Appreciate that, James Moore. Thank you for the kind words and thank you for watching.
Yeah. So somebody was asking about, I believe it was Glade, about was Christianity brought to West Africa by North African trade, conquering, or European colonization, or mix? In my personal opinion, Christianity spread in Europe and Asia and in Africa simultaneously. And it first entered Africa via Egypt, and then it kind of spread down into Sudan and Ethiopia. But when it comes to West Africa, it wasn't North Africans who brought it to West Africa. It was Europeans who came initially and traded with the coastal Africans there. And when you're trading with people, you're not only trading items, you're trading ideas as well. And so they brought the idea of Christianity, they brought the religion of Christianity into West Africa, to Nigeria, to especially Congo. The Congolese really embraced Christianity and made it sort of a state religion there. So I wouldn't say the North Africans brought Christianity into West Africa. I would say the North Africans definitely brought in Islam into West Africa. And Christianity didn't come initially by conquering in West Africa. It was more so like through trade, like relationships, like I said. I think From Nothing kind of stepped out there for a second. J. Cole 21 says, do y'all think Igbo pyramids were bigger in the past? Perhaps a little bit, maybe. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but piggybacking off the Christianity thing, by the way. Yeah, not just Christianity, but religions in general, as far as the way they spread into Africa. North Africa, I can't say the same, but Sub-Saharan Africa, whether it was Christianity or Muslim, for the most part, was through trade and through like peaceful spread.
Yeah.
Until colonialism happened, where religions were Europeans with their modern technology stigmatized indigenous religions. The majority of the history of Abrahamic religions in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, has been peaceful.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Go ahead.
I was saying, as far as the Igbo pyramids are concerned, I mean, it is possible. They are made of mud, and mud deteriorates from rain, and the Igbo live in a heavily forested rainforest region, so they could have been bigger, but yeah.
Some Anime Extreme is asking, what do you think the existence of the Igbo pyramids suggests? Um, I think it suggests a manifestation of their culture, ultimately. I'm not sure what you're trying to get at with that, maybe, but I just think, it's a part of their culture, and they built them. Um,
Human beings have a tendency for wanting to make things higher up in the sky. Mound building in general is something that's been seen all around the world. At even places you probably don't even know exist have had mounds, some kind of mound-like structure, something to
very true.
piling dirt up
Very
so you
true.
can get higher to the sky. That's something people just like doing for some reason. So
Yeah, you can see pyramids all throughout the world. So I mean, yeah, definitely. Oh, Anonymous on the internet has a really good question, and it kind of goes into what I wanted to ask you actually. He says, if you were given the opportunity to make one movie about African history, what would it be about? And I think, for me personally, I would love to make a movie about how King Payanki, how he conquered Egypt and kind of like reestablished what he felt was his, the Nubian culture, if you will, or now Valley culture in general. There's a lot to unpack with that in general, but I personally, I love Nubian history, by the way. I don't know if any of you guys noticed.
I definitely did.
Okay.
The Battle of Dongola is definitely one of my highest contenders as far as Nubia is concerned.
What?
The Battles of Dongola.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
But I think if we had a movie on African history, we want to steer clear of too much of the, as we say, the known world, because it'll make people think that they were only. People always like to put this emphasis. Oh, they learned it from Europeans. All that. For one, that whole concept. I'm not gonna. I could go on a whole. We could have an entire live stream discussion on this. So I'm not gonna go too deep. On it. But the fact that people criticize Africans for picking up and learning things from other cultures is ridiculous, because that's
it's insane. It's infuriating, actually.
Yeah.
If you know African history, it's infuriating.
Because for one, most of the world's cultures did the same thing. Like
no, Jabari, not most, all of them.
Yes,
Every
all
last
of them.
One.
If somebody sees something that's good and it works, they're gonna pick it up. It's just it's that simple,
Exactly.
The same with my YouTube videos. I watch YouTubers that inspire me and influence me, and I take cues from them and improve my own content with it, and vice versa. So another thing that bothers me about it is the fact that there were impressive purely indigenous African innovations. It's just nobody ever wants to talk about them. Two, nobody ever believes them when they are talked about. So that's a problem. Like Great Zimbabwe, for example. That whole thing that went on for like a century, where it's like, oh, there's no way Africans could, stuff like that. The Benin walls. Most people I tell, when I tell people Benin built the largest man-made earthen structure in human history until the modern era, they don't believe me. They're like, wait, what? I never heard of that. Who are the Benin? So it's just
it's unfortunate, man. It's just unfortunate. But it's very impressive. Like the largest earthwork in the world, bro. Like, and the problem is, like, we don't really have many like illustrations or pictures of it in general. So it's just kind of like, what incentive do they have to believe us? To be, if we're honest, I mean, in my opinion, at least, like, they don't really see much about it in general in popular culture, through imagery, illustrations, like I said, whatever it may be. And that's why it's important that, we do this work to sort of document these things and then later incorporate them into popular culture.
Yeah, because the way you get people to learn isn't by having, in 1559, and there was this invasion of the so-and-so empire. Nobody wants to watch that, but when you actually make something interesting, a video game, this epic, awesome-looking warrior, this movie, this story that touches you emotionally in the heart, makes you feel something, makes you want to know more. That's how you teach people stuff. Most people, when they know all about Japanese history, for example, they know about samurais and katanas and ninjas and all that stuff, they don't know about it because they picked up a book in the library and just read about it. They know about it because they saw something that made them feel a certain kind of way. It made an impact on them emotionally, and then made them want to learn more. So then they checked out that book at the library because they were interested already. We don't have that initial make you interested stuff for African content. And that's why I think it's so important to make content like what Home Team does with these animations and stuff make people interested, make people like, whoa, I never even heard of this, but this is awesome. Let me Google this real quick, you know?
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. So what's your favorite West African civilization? I'm putting you on the spot.
I think we already went over this one in our first collaboration, which we need to make a more proper one later, but the Ashanti Empire, hands down. Ashanti, close second, Benin. Those are my two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have thought it was Benin.
Yeah, Benin is a close second, like I said.
Okay.
Ashanti, they just, like the Benin, though impressive, Ashanti, it's really hard to explain. Like, I like so much about both of them, but if I had to give the edge to one, it would be the Ashanti. And that's simply because they're the only sub-Saharan African empire to defeat outside invaders, like, not one, not two, but like 3 times. And
I wouldn't say all that.
well, who
they weren't the only ones.
Or sorry, more specifically by forward, I meant European.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and
even,
it was a relatively modern era too. You know, it wasn't like back in the days when they were still fighting with swords either.
Yeah, I think one of the unique things about the Ashanti, in my personal opinion, is that even when they were on paper technically colonized, they literally kind of ignored colonization.
Yeah.
Like they weren't really thoroughly colonized or conquered, if you will. Like, they really weren't.
Yeah, like the War of the Golden Stool, and for them, their objective was just protect the Golden Stool. So on paper, they lost the war, but they still won.
Exactly.
Like, they wanted to protect the Golden Stool. That they succeeded. That was their only goal.
Exactly, and that's one. And my favorite is Mali, but I want to go back to ancient Nubia in general with Queen Amanirenas, because if you go throughout the literature and you see her interaction with the Romans or whatever, they would say, oh, she ultimately lost or whatever. Yeah. Like, that's what you constantly see. But she got everything that she wanted.
Exactly.
It makes no sense. She got her prerogative. So to me, it's just kind of I don't know. It just goes to the denigration of African history, African agency, and peoples.
Yeah. So it's like in Ghana, for example, in their books, I'm sure they probably said they won that war. Because as I said, it's like the British, for them it was all about asserting their dominance over a region, whereas in Ghana it was about protecting a priceless relic from the hands of foreigners.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I like about African people in general. Their spirituality is taken very, very serious, and it's because I believe we were the first people, and we descend from those people ultimately. Africans were the first people in humanity in general, and so that spirituality was very important, trying to understand themselves and the world around them, and if there is a higher being, if you will. And I think Africans wanted to connect with that very deeply, and they saw the importance of it. And so it just goes to the model of how the Ashanti wanted to move forward with that War of the Golden Stool. You can kill all of us, but we gonna get that stool. You feel me?
Yeah, basically, that sense of a purpose and a nationality in this world, something that people think Africans lacked. It's we are the Ashanti people. This is important to us, versus people thinking it's just a bunch of scattered villages of people who are just all they care about is growing their yams for the dry season. No, they had a sense of people that they were proud of. But we're so bent on the French and the British and the Germans, and the French are better, the British wouldn't. It's they felt that way too. They had that existed in Africa.
Yeah, definitely. I totally feel you on that. To me, I like Mali because there is documented evidence that they did sail the Atlantic Ocean. Whether it was a failure or not, that's up to you guys. And there is also Mansa Musa, richest man ever. According to recent studies or whatever, or just information, and then the Mali Empire, they defeated one of their vassal states, defeated a Portuguese intrusion and an invasion of trying to just get people off the coast.
Kingdom of Niumi. I actually made a video about that.
Yeah, exactly. And so to me, those three things, that combination, Sunjata Keita. Mali is great to me. It's the best empire in Africa, in West Africa. I mean,
it is definitely up there on my list. It's definitely up there.
Yeah, To me personally, I believe it's top 3 in all of African history, the Mali Empire.
Yeah, yeah. I would put it in my top 3 too, probably behind Ashanti and Benin.
Oh really?
Because Mali. Okay, when rating an empire of your favorite, especially on your own personal ideals and stuff, for me, yeah, Mali was amazing at several things more amazing than the Benin and the Ashanti. But as far as my personal favorite, I have my own specific sets of criteria, of what makes it one of my favorites. And
nah, you're crazy. You're crazy.
For example,
Mali is objectively great. Objectively great.
It is great as far. Okay, if the Mali Empire went up against Benin, they probably win. Let me put it that way. But it's still, Benin is still one of my favorites. As I said, for me, a lot of it has to do with things like architecture. For example, as a creator, as an artist, I have an appreciation for good architecture, and that's one of the reasons why. One of the main reasons Ashanti is ahead of Benin in my lineup, because of the architecture. So we all have our own unique sets of criteria for what makes it our own personal favorite. As far as a practicality standpoint of which one is most powerful, which one is most successful, Mali probably would be number 1.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's about power, and then it's about like what kind of impact did you have on non-Africans ultimately. And I do believe Mali did have that impact, if you will. Timbuktu definitely had an impact on the world. So, yeah, to me, that's what really kind of solidifies it.
Yeah. So like for me, it's like when I'm looking at what is my personal favorite and what you're looking at as your personal favorite, I think that's there's no what's the word? Just no consistent structure that would be that we could both line up to in that respect alone. But if we compared them based on like different categories, military, engineering, stuff like that, impact on the world, then if we did it that way, then Mali would definitely win in a lot of those categories, including impact on the world.
Yeah.
Also, as Hidden History said, I meant to read it earlier. He said that the Kings and Generals claims they haven't made a video on Sub-Saharan Africa yet because they're scared of getting incorrect info. Which I hear a lot of European-based channels, or Eurocentric channel, whatever you want to call them, who say the same thing. Which I agree is understandable, but it's sad that nobody wants to put that kind of effort into it.
Okay, so explain why that's understandable.
It's understandable that they're afraid of the backlash of getting their information wrong, but what is not understandable is the fact that they're not willing to put the research in to make sure they don't get it wrong.
But honestly, like, why? I mean, what are you afraid of? Like, are they afraid of, like, I guess,
backlash,
Afrocentric information, if you will, or like, what do you?
I think they're afraid of, as we said earlier in the stream, like oversimplifying things or leaving out important details, or maybe, for example, War of Golden Stool saying that the British won, stuff like that. They might be afraid of misinforming them due to inadequate research. But in my opinion, if they're really passionate and care about what they're doing, they would make sure that they do all the research necessary to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you're doing the Incas or whatever, like you're not afraid of misinformation there. Like I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I agree. I see why they would say that, but at the same time, I do disagree as a whole, because all you gotta do is just do the research. And I feel like the difficulty associated with African research scares people, because it is very difficult. There's not.
It can be.
The sources aren't as clear cut and cookie cut and consolidated as other parts of the world. If I want to look up something about, I don't know, let's just say the Jukun Kingdom of Nigeria. Do you know how hard that would be?
That's extremely difficult. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things, and the thing is, it's possible, but you gotta actually have a passion and dedication to research that, and unfortunately, most of these channels don't. So.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you, but there's a way around that. Ultimately, if you really care, or if you really want to advance, diverse stories, like you'll find a way. Like honestly, even my video I did on Sunjata Keita, it's a military history of Africa. Like he did thorough research. He has a bunch of scholars on there. He even includes oral history. Like you can just tell the people this is where the source is from, and if you have any disagreements, whatever. But like, because even in their videos, in some of their videos, they're just like, we're not really sure if this happened, but we're going to use this version.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Like, so to me, like, you can do that with Africa. Like, it's not that hard.
I agree. I mean, my whole point with that, I'm not saying they have a valid reason or excuse to not do it, because I personally think they should have. But I'm just saying, when it comes to how difficult the research is for Africa compared to other parts of the world, including the Inca, it is undisputably more difficult to find any information, let alone accurate information, on African civilizations, because they're continuing the trend of why it's difficult to find it. And there's just not enough people out there who want to put it out there. You can find a pasty white dude from Minnesota who's obsessed with the Inca Empire, but you're not going to find a pasty white dude from Minnesota who's obsessed with Nigeria. You know, it just doesn't happen that way. Unfortunately. It's funny, but it's unfortunate.
I hear you. I think we're kind of neglecting some questions here.
What we missed? Let's see.
Why
were there more Sahelian kingdoms compared to other regions? There weren't.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, there were significantly more kingdoms in the forested region of the forest kingdoms of Africa probably had the largest amount of kingdoms throughout African history than arguably any other part of Africa.
Yeah, honestly, bro, like when you say, I hate that term forest kingdom, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I personally just hate it. I think we talked about it too a little bit. I just because we were talking about, like, because I had sort of a grievance with the term sub-Saharan Africa. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You know, I'm still on the fence, whatever, but like I despise the term forest kingdom. And you can use it whatever. I'm just saying that, like,
is it like the connotation, like they're like living in the forest, like noble savages, or what? Like, what?
Yeah, I think I'm just honestly I'm just triggered by it, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just triggered by it. It's just me. But I hate that.
I view it in a positive light, because it shows, like, people say Africa was full of forests, so they couldn't found kingdoms. And for me, it's like they didn't care about they tamed those forests. They cut down those trees and built cities in them, just like the Maya did, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the way I see it, personally.
I think I may have even said Forest Kingdom in a video one time, and I was just like, I looked at the video, like, I cannot believe I just did that. But yeah, I heard you saying.
Snack Crumbs, thanks for the $5 donation. Will either of you make a video on the first and second wars between Ethiopia and Italy? Eventually, but that's one of those topics that I think also kind of hogs the spotlight. I have mentioned it in several videos before, but I haven't actually done a full video specifically on that topic for that reason.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I try and steer away from, you know, Africa and Europe's interaction. I try and make it more, you know, I guess indigenous, if you will.
Yeah. Like,
you know, battles between Africans, you know, that kind of thing. But I do touch on, like, you know, the Moors or whatever, how they went up into Spain, blah, 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 I guess. But yeah, I try and stay within the continent as much as possible.
Same, because it is important to mention Europe every so often, especially considering a lot of what we know about Africa comes from European explorers. But it is necessary at times. Same with, like, how I tried to steer clear of the negative topics like slavery. It's necessary at times, but it's not like for it to be the dominant theme. Like most of what we hear about African history, the dominant theme is always involving Europeans or slavery.
Yeah.
You know, my approach is to just that there's more to it than just Europeans and slavery. So
yeah. And this question this statement might be a little controversial, but what are we here for if we're not controversial, right? But no, I'm just I think because I like the early documentation about, you know, what early Europeans and early Arab writers when they came to Africa and what they said, what they heard, what they saw, whatever.
What they saw at the very beginning before any of the, like,
before any of the baggage, you know? And like, to me, they were like super honest, bro. And like, to me, and in my opinion, that's something that we can use in the diaspora, like those early interactions between Africans and Europeans, what they saw, like they were really honest about what they saw. And they were clear about, if they didn't like this, or they said this was fantastic, or this was amazing. They were very complimentary in many ways. So like that raw reaction is something that's valuable to us in the diaspora and what they had to say. Because
a lot of people don't realize this whole European views of Africans as inferior is a relatively new thing. Like back in like the 1500s,
Exactly.
Europeans were like, "Oh, look at these humans who are black. What are they
Exactly.
doing?" And so all they cared about was what they saw these humans doing.
Exactly.
Once slaves became African slaves became a norm in Europe, they naturally needed reasons and justifications for enslaving them. So they found every reason they could to excuse what they were doing. And
Absolutely. I mean, bro, they had to. They had to do that. It was important for them to do that.
Because slavery was already taboo in Europe at the time, so they had to have a justification to why it was okay to do it to Africans.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 second, we got a $10 donation from Ross JP. I teach African history for black children, and they have really been drawn to animated videos. Do either of you have any plans to expand your videos for children consumption? I don't have any immediate plans, but I honestly have thought about it at one point. Yeah.
For me, I find it personally on an individual level to make content for children. I'm trying to, because even when I was teaching, at the school in DC, like it was difficult for me to kind of, I don't want to say dumb down, but like make it for children ultimately.
Simplify it, yeah. Just simplify
it.
Yeah,
that's
so
good.
They can understand
Simplify it. Exactly. And so like I'm hesitant to like make animation, more for children. Even the animation style I use, like children based, I guess, but that's because it's less expensive ultimately. But yeah, I definitely, that's why I started my channel, to reach children ultimately. So I do want to get more into that. And honestly, I do want to get more into volunteering my time to teaching the kids, but I really want to hone my skills on how to approach children and teach them in simplified ways.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, my target audience, I would ultimately like to expand to children, but for me, my primary target audience are teenagers and young adults. People who are ripe and ready for the potential to do what I hope gets done, which is the main topic of this stream, is to create content inspired and influenced by African history and culture. And I feel like teenagers and young adults are the best demographic for that. Not that I have any problems with children or older people watching them. I'm 29 years old, I'd be a hypocrite if I did. But yeah, that's my audience. I want primarily like, teenagers. That's my target audience.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw a question earlier, but I missed it. Jabari asked, I think somebody asked me, Jabari, what's your favorite African monarch? And I've looked at it like 3 times and have forgotten to answer all 3 times. As far as monarchs are concerned, and this may just have to do with documentation, I would definitely have to say the Askia dynasty is the most interesting. It's like a real life version of Game of Thrones, basically. So, a lot of drama, a lot of conflict. And it would definitely make a really good movie or TV show. That's for sure.
If I'm like really blunt and honest, the Songhai, and maybe it shows through my videos too, I have a bias against Songhai, to be honest.
Why is that?
Because I love Songhai so much, like I'm disappointed, and like I feel like they had so much potential.
They definitely did. Well, which is why I said I think it would make a good movie, because of all the drama that they induced, their own self-destructiveness. It would make a very dramatic movie or show.
Yeah,
just like Game of Thrones,
And I know that sounds harsh or whatever. I love Songhai people, whatever. I do love the kingdom. I critique it heavily because I love it so much. You feel me?
Yeah.
So, and I hope people can understand that.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Askia Muhammad's children screwed the problem with the Songhai, it was structured off of family units. There was the emperor, aka the Askia, and each of the kingdoms was ruled over by one of his family members, and each of those family members had their own armies. It was an ingenious yet stupid structure, because if one family member got pissed off enough, he already had his own army in his own kingdom to go to war with the emperor. And so there were only, I can't remember, there was only like 3 Askias who actually reigned for their entire term until their death. That wasn't resulted in a war or assassination. I think there's only like 3. So,
see, and I think the Ethiopians did it right there with the Abyssinian Empire earlier on in their history. I think it was around the 13th, 14th century. What they would do with their emperors, like with their, because he would have a bunch of sons or whatever, they would have like this specified location where like they would send them to the mountains, like all his sons, essentially. So they wouldn't be able to compete for the throne, and that little mountaintop, if you will, was guarded by guards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was way more organized. Like they knew that, like, you know, civil unrest and civil war after an emperor dies was just it can destroy an empire. So you just get one person who's designated as king afterwards, and you send everybody else away.
And see, what's sad too is in the Tariq al-Fatash, I actually have it. Do you have that book at home too?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I have that book. I remember, I wish I could remember the page right away. I don't feel like digging through it, but I remember one part, Askia Muhammad specifically happily praises the fact that he has over 100 sons. And how
Lord,
are they and
that's horrible.
And then he talks about how great they are and they're going to make the empire strong, and then he ends up getting overthrown by one and confined to a bug-infested island in the middle of the Niger River.
Yeah.
You know,
like how he ended was mad.
yeah.
Man, I was like, my goodness.
It's like, oh, you're blind. Even though you're my dad, you're blind, so you can't rule. So I'm gonna put you on this island, this mosquito-infested island, blind by yourself. You know, it's like that's what I said. It's like so much. There's so much drama.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, a series can be made about it. I think it would be very entertaining. But yeah.
But I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. They had so much potential, but they screwed it up. It was that simple. If they managed their stuff properly in Morocco, even with their guns, tried to invade them, I think they would have got their asses kicked.
Jabari, I'm telling you, bro. Like, that could have been so easily avoided.
Yeah.
So easily, man. Like, it's so fun. And that's what really frustrates me. I'm just like, man, like, and that's what made West Africa deteriorate, at least that region, deteriorate a lot faster. When Songhai fell, like, all the ethnic groups were, in a sense, free to create their own little kingdoms and compete with each other once again.
Yeah. And I actually kind of said that in one of my mapping video, actually. Actually, you can keep going, but I'll bring it up really quick just to show you the note I added in that video.
Yeah.
So I'm sure most of you have probably seen this, but if I go to the end at the note for that, where was it? When Songhai collapsed to the Moroccans. I put Morocco once again. Wait, where is it? Battle on DB. Judar Pasha, Moroccan Empire leads a force of musketeers across the desert, inflicting a devastating defeat on Songhai Empire. Where was it? Oh yeah, Songhai severely weakened from a string of sporadic infighting induced by paranoid rulers. That was that was only 3 years before the Moroccans invaded, and they invaded because they kidnapped one of the brothers of one of the rulers of Songhai and forced them to tell them what was going on. The brother told them there's a lot of infighting. Yeah. This would be the perfect time to attack them.
Yeah, there are like mixed sources on that, because they say it was probably his brother, whatever. But they say somebody from Songhai came and told the Moroccans, you know, some of the intel about what was going on there and how weak they are. But I never heard that version of it before, though. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that was from the General History of Africa series by UNESCO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's good, because that's, you know, because the Africans were the authors of that, so that's good.
Yeah. Also, quick thing, how we were talking about iconography. I used the Berber Takoba swords for my for this video. If you didn't know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to make some generic like European broadswords. So, question: did Mali really conquer Jenne? It's up to debate. In this video, they never did. They tried, but they failed. Based on our sources, they did put a lot of pressure on them, but they never actually successfully conquered them. But they claimed they did because, you know, they were embarrassed with the fact that they didn't. So, Songhai definitely did, though.
Yeah, Sunny Ali or Sunny Baru, I believe, conquered Jenne.
Yeah, it was Sunny Ali. Sunny Bur Ali, I think, was his proper name.
Yeah.
Sunny Bur Ali.
He has so many different names, man. It's several.
Yeah. And what is?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them do though.
What is said about that conquest too? There's conflicting stories, as with a lot of African history. One says it was a 7-month siege, another one says it was a 7-year siege.
It was not 7 years. Highly
Yeah.
But I mean, they like in the Tariq Al Sudan, they go in on Sunny, and I'm just like, my goodness.
It's because
and
he wasn't a real Muslim in their eyes. That's why.
Exactly. I don't think he really embraced truly Islam at all. Because I think he incorporated a lot of his traditional African beliefs. I mean, a lot of people did back then. Ultimately, like when you say Mali is a Islamic empire,
it was only the ruling family, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was it really? Not really. You feel me? So
yeah. Why did Songhai not adopt guns? The Moroccans were able to, and I believe the Songhai could have also. I think they were too busy fighting each other to worry about guns. That's my opinion. Like, Malians attempted.
I think it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was saying Malians attempted to get guns from the Portuguese, but the Portuguese wouldn't sell them to them.
Exactly.
But Songhai, as far as I know, they never tried to have guns. However, I wish I had the source, and I wish I had one of my team members here who showed me the source initially. But the Songhai, apparently a cannon was discovered in Gao, but it was never known or proven to have been used at any point in time. But it was there, so they were aware of them. They just never invested the time, and nobody really knows why.
But that could have been from the Moroccan invasion because they did have cannons there. So when they came in, they left it or whatever. I don't know. But
yeah,
I don't think that's for the Songhai. I highly doubt that.
And the Songhai also had a very I feel like the way they fought and everything was based a lot on pride, which leads to the downfall of a lot of civilizations, pride in their traditions and stuff like that. And the Songhai, Askia, for example, I can't remember what Askia. Hopefully you can help me out with this, home team, what Askia means. I think it's something basically implying that usurping the throne is like a good thing. So it's like a culture that is like feeding on.
Well, from what I've heard, Askia means usurper. Because what's the first one, Askia Muhammad, he usurped the throne essentially from Sunni Ali. So Askia, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying I do remember hearing that, but I remember hearing one that said something about like he should not be or something, which I guess technically would be a usurper. Like apparently the sisters of Sunni Ali's son were basically said Askia when he died.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, and they took that title with pride and wore it as like a badge of honor. It's like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be the king because I murdered their brother, and they took. So that just goes to show you like the culture, their military culture, what they thought and felt about their position. So I think a lot of that might have just been a pride thing rather than a practicality
it's
thing.
probably a jerk title.
Yeah.
Nah, but yeah.
But sorry, what were you saying?
No, I wasn't saying anything. Somebody had a question here about the Kingdom of Nri. I think the Kingdom of Nri is so unique, man. I love it because apparently they had priests that went over to, convert other Africans, and it was sort of a safe haven for enslaved people and things of that nature. And it was a way of conquering the region without violence. It was a way of conquering the region with your culture. And I think that's one of the greatest prides of the Igbo people in general, for them to be able to do something like that. And I think it's amazing. I love Nri. I need to talk about it more, but I wish there was more information about it. But from what I hear, like that's what they were really doing at the Kingdom of Nri. So I think it's dope.
Let me switch back to the palace really quick. The thing about Nri though is the way we think of a kingdom. We have this very specific, unique viewpoint and perspective of what we consider a kingdom. And, and Nri doesn't really fit perfectly into that. And in reality is really more of like a collection of like chiefdoms that were all tied together through a shared and common religion. So when people say the kingdom of Re, it's a little erroneous to call it a kingdom, if that makes sense.
I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I think we have agency as Afro-descended people to claim that title because it's a kingdom that nobody else in the world has heard about. That paradigm of, it has to be one group conquering another in this small little area or the same ethnic group dominating a region. Like, they did it in a totally different way. And I do believe Enri kind of had sort of a central authority, and that central was their spirituality. And to me, that's what makes it even more of an African kingdom.
Yeah, like a theocracy.
Yeah. No. A kingdom.
Well,
I feel what you're saying. I
see what you're saying too. I don't know. I just think it's like, for example, people have a very specific viewpoint on what constitutes a civilization. Mostly like geocentric views on it. And I'm just saying not everything is going to fit into that cookie cut model that we like to place it in. And I'm saying Enri is one of those examples.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, I totally agree. So
we got another donation here. We got Snack Crumbs. Did any African civilizations have a naval force and engage in naval warfare? We only hear about the Caribbean. As far as a naval force that engaged in naval warfare, yes, several West African kingdoms did, but it wasn't naval in the sense we would think about, like in the ocean with big ships and cannons. It was more of river boats with archers and javelineers. That's one of the things that made Songhai as strong as it was its navy. The Great Lakes kingdoms of East Africa were the same way. Buganda, they had hundreds upon hundreds of boats in the lakes having naval battles with other people who also had hundreds of boats. And then as far as having big ships and cannons and stuff, you would have seen that in East Africa, more specifically like Somalia, like the Ajuran Empire. They had a navy that actually defeated the Portuguese at one point. So,
see, and that's the thing though, as well. Mali had a empire as well. If you not an empire, I'm sorry, a navy, because they went out there in their boats with their poisonous arrows and they devastated the Portuguese, and they were able to move a lot easier than the big Portuguese ships. Now, not that the Portuguese were fighting them in their big, naval ships, I guess. I think some of the Portuguese came out in their boats, their smaller boats as well, but they still got the business.
Yeah.
And so, to me, for Mali to be able to do that by themselves, and, instead of getting help, maybe from the Ottomans or whatever, like Ajuran did, I think it's pretty impressive. And to me, it just makes Mali all the more, just having a great legacy in general.
Well, according to our research at that point, when they encountered the Portuguese, they were no longer under Mali. Like, they were maybe 10, 20 years independent. It would have been the kingdom of Niumi at that point.
Really?
Yeah, and the kingdom of Jagra. Actually, if I go back in this video, I feel like kind of bad switching scenes over and over, but let me go back to it really quick.
Oh, yeah, you gotta show me that.
What was that?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know what?
I didn't know they broke off from Mali by that time.
Yeah. So if you can see in the video, the Portuguese first began trading with the West African coast in 1444. Nuno Tristão, funded by Henry the Navigator of Portugal. So when you go to 1444, it's when they first start trading with them. Wait, hold on. 1444, 1456. The kingdom of Niumi was located roughly right here. So Mali would have been separated by Niumi by the Gambia River border. But this area right here was no longer under the control. And these are the people the Portuguese were trading with. Sorry, not trading with, warring with. Same with the kingdom of Jagra. And even still, this area would later become the kingdom of Kabu. And they would break off in, I think, the early 1500s. I can't remember.
So look, we have to look more into that, I feel.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push back a little because I feel as though, and this is good. This I think this is excellent. This is great because I feel even when because after the Portuguese were getting the business, they sent like pretty much a viceroy to Mali to be like, all right, let's do some trade like relationship instead of you attacking us ultimately.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you go to? I think his name was Diogo Gomez or whatever.
Yep, it was him. He was mentioned in this as well, I think.
Yeah, he went to Mali. He went to a representative of Mali. He didn't go to maybe he did. Maybe he went to those people there as well. But from the source I saw, he went to Mali, and that's when, everything because basically the Portuguese wanted to, create some sort of port there, and they would pay money to Mali in order to stay there ultimately, and they would stop slave trading ultimately. So I guess we have to sort of figure out, like, okay, why did he go to Mali? Or maybe because he got the business from this little kingdom, he was just like, all right, Mali, we can't bang with Mali like that, so let me just preemptively go to Mali type of thing. I don't know.
The way I read it is they went down there, they tried doing their whole capture people and, as we would say, civilize them, in quotes.
Yeah.
And try to learn about them. And then when they came back years later, the people there knew these white men are taking our people. So they attacked them, and that happened over and over and over. But then as far as I know, Portuguese establishing peaceful relations with the Jollof Empire is what mediated them, because they were trying to make peace, but at that point they had already earned a reputation for not wanting peace. So then they used Jollof people as mediators between them to translate for them and interpret for them and let them know, like, hey, look, we come in peace. Why are you attacking us? And by that point, the people of the Jaguar Kingdom the king had already told his warriors that the white men were trying to cannibalize them. I think as a way of, like, say, whether, like, I think it was done for the same reason why Europeans would later, as I said in the video, actually, a lot of Europeans would use that same mentality. These, as they would say, like, savage Africans are cannibals. They should be civilized. They should be killed. They should be taken over. The people of the Jaguar Kingdom had done the same thing, but for different reasons. They said the Europeans were cannibals. So from my research, that's what I got from it. But at the end of the day, though, it's so poorly documented because the Portuguese
absolutely.
For one, the Portuguese wanted to keep these a secret. These because they wanted the monopoly over this trade. Secondly, when they got their asses kicked, they didn't really want to write about it. So
yeah.
Let me read this donation really quick, though. How many Middle Eastern, particularly Arab, Persian, and Turkish slaves did the Mali Empire have? Did they have it in the Mali Empire? First off, thank you for the $5 donation, Matthew Mann. As far as Middle Eastern, as far as I know, if it was large scale, they clearly didn't document it much. But I do remember reading specifically that one of the mantas of Mali had an Arab girl slave at one point. I can't remember the exact source, but I do remember reading about that. Yeah, Home Team clearly has seen the same one I've seen, I'm going to assume. So,
yeah, that was Ibn Battuta who said that.
Yeah. And Ibn Battuta is definitely one of the most influential figures when it comes to our knowledge of pre-colonial Mali.
Yeah.
Are you going to ever continue Cities Built by Africans episode? If so, then Mbazem, Congo, and Kana would be great candidates for the next episodes. I'm not going to continue that series anymore, but I'm gonna revamp it, because back then I didn't cite my sources and my animation sucked, and I'm just gonna revamp it from scratch whenever I do get back to it. You got a question for you by Nobility is most Home Team.
Okay, so it says, what do you think about Egyptian origin story claiming that their ancestry home lies within the land of Punt, the Horn of Africa? Could they still have part ancestry from Sudan also? Oh man, we get into the Egypt stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, so in my personal opinion, from my studies, I think the Egyptians, they don't have a singular origin. I think they come from the Sudan region. I believe they come from the Horn as well, and I also believe they came from the Western Sahara. So it's a combination. I think it's a combination of different peoples that came into that region. And so when you listen to their oral history in some parts of Egypt or whatever, you may hear, slightly different versions of their oral story or their oral history. And you'll just hear multiple things. And I think when the Dorius Siculus, I believe, when he claimed he talked to an Egyptian priest, and the priest told him that, hey, we were a colony of Egypt, and essentially that's where we came from. So, it's and I know a lot of those Nubian people, if you will, also came from the eastern Sudan area and part of the Horn as well. So, I think all of that is true. So I wouldn't say that the Egyptians exclusively came from the land of Punt. Are they lying when they say that? No, I don't think so. But I think the Egyptians are a little more diverse in that sense, orally, oral tradition, and just the peopling of that region.
Let me switch back to the Palestine really quick. But adding on to that, it's like when people ask, they have the whole debate of whether Egyptians are black or white. I always have the same argument. If you go to the United States, for example, let's just say you were born yesterday, and you go to the United States. They put you in Detroit or Atlanta or Birmingham, Alabama. You know, you're going to conclude, oh, the United States is a black country.
Yeah.
But in Egypt, being a cultural melting pot, being in the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and Africa, you're gonna have black people, white people, brown people. You're gonna have different groups, and they're gonna be in different enclaves depending on what part of the kingdom you're in. So to go there and say, I see black people, therefore they're black. This is a black country, and then you write about it. You're not wrong that there are black people there. You're not wrong that you're seeing black Egyptians, but that is no basis of concluding that the whole country is black or white or brown or whatever. There's gonna be a lot of different groups there, and a lot of those different groups came from different places.
Yeah, but I guess I think when the diaspora wants to talk about it, I think a lot of them are aware of the diversity of Egypt. But I think they really want to know who built the culture, built the civilization, like
who
the
are the
old
originators?
kingdom.
The originators.
Yeah, who are exactly who are the originators? I think that's what they're concerned with, and I don't think they necessarily ignore the other phenotypes that they don't they don't think are black or whatever, or are non-blacks or whatever, however you may define it. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. But yeah, for me, from my studies, Egyptian civilization, the civilization of Egypt, the culture, the people, the original people, if you will. And I don't even like saying that, but I guess for people to understand what I'm trying to say, I have to say that they came from Upper Egypt, in my personal opinion. That's where a lot of those people moved into the area from different parts of Africa, and then they formed that culture and that civilization. To me, the base was a sort of a Sudanese or Nubian base, and then it sort of expanded from there ultimately. And I have different reasons for why I believe that personally, but to me that's where it started. And I know I did a video about the Egyptian so-called hieroglyphs being actually a Sudanese invention, and I have a reason to believe that as well. So I believe the culture of Egypt came from Upper Egypt, northern Sudan area. And then, when King Narmer came, there were different peoples with different sort of ideas, and they weren't really unified. And then he came and unified the whole area. The people in Lower Egypt are slightly different from the people of Upper Egypt, because there were people from Canaan or the Levant region in general who came into North Africa. And who inhabited Lower Egypt. And that's why I believe that there were sort of two crowns, and you had to kind of have both of those crowns. They were two different areas.
It's like what else? It's like the General History of Africa series. They claim that which makes sense, which you see happen in many parts of the world, when climate forces people to move to a new area. A lot of diverse populations that would otherwise never interact are all suffering the same thing, and they all converge on an area that is arable and habitable, and that's what happened with the Nile Valley. So that's why you get people moving from the south up to Egypt, and so on and so forth. Also, sorry, Red Book, I have not been ignoring you. I've seen you ask the question 5 times now. It's just we were finishing another question before that. But you said, what do the temples and shrines look like in Benin? Most of them don't exist anymore, so I can't give you the definitive answer, but I will assume they look similar to those in the plaques, the towers with the birds and the snakes on top of them, similar to the way the palace looked. Also, it was normal for them to have stone axe heads on them and bronze sculptures as well. Stone axe heads were believed to have been created by the thunder god Shango, a god shared between the Edo people and the Yoruba people. And even to this day, you can see polished stone axe heads on their shrines. But, yeah, back
So,
then.
yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Also, Hex GP, thank you for the $5 donation. What does being black mean? Is a dark Indian black also in part Nubian? And what do you think about Medjay and also Kush was in Sudan? Being black is such an inconsistent term and is largely a Western term. If you're of African descent, you're black. But when you're trying to apply black to other parts of the world besides the United States, or anywhere where diaspora exists, you're doomed to failure and conflict and confusion, because it doesn't apply to every place.
Yeah.
You can't just look at a skin color. Like here in America, if somebody's my skin color, more than likely they're of African descent. Like 99% of the time. If you do that in like Somalia or Ethiopia or India, you know, they can be blacker than me, but not necessarily African. So.
Yeah. I know KB Titan 24 previously, he asked me a question. He said, "Home team, in one video, did you say Tutmosis III statue was found near the Zambezi River? What book did you get that from?" So yeah, I did say that. That was I don't know if it was Tutmosis III, I'm sorry, but maybe it was. I have to look back and look at it. But I definitely got it. It was one of the Egyptian pharaohs. And I got that from the General History of Africa, which is written by, you know, Africans. I found that there.
Yep.
And they were like discussing that. They only briefly mentioned it. They just kind of said it and then moved forward. But it was definitely, according to them, it was found near the Zambezi River. And honestly, we can't be surprised by stuff like that. Like, Africans move throughout the continent. Like, I don't know why people are, and I'm not saying you, the guy who asked the question, I'm not saying you are of this mindset, but I think a lot of people who critique Africa, they think that, or African people, they think that, hey, you know, you Africans, you stay over here and you can't move anywhere else. Like, just stay there.
We're just lost and stuck in time.
Further. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Africans move throughout the continent. They influence each other. They intermarried with each other to create new languages, new cultures. So
the Bantu migration alone was the largest and fastest migration in human history.
Exactly. And bro, that's only the one that we're really familiar with in Africa. There were tons more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, just if you're a genuine scholar, like, you know that. You didn't need evidence.
Just like what we're talking about with North Africans migrating from North Africa to like West Africa. Like
yeah, exactly. That's just how humans interact with one another. Yeah.
And
so, you know,
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, it's you.
Yeah, so to find, you know, a statue of, like, you know, something from the Nile Valley, whether it's Egyptian, Nubian, whatever, to find it somewhere else in Africa is actually something we should expect to see, in my personal opinion. So
we have a question, or well, for one, we have another donation. Matthew Mann, did Khoi and San peoples ever have any empires, cities, towns, named villages, states, or nations of their own without contact with non-Khois and Sans? As far as popular academia is concerned, no. However, civilizations like Mapungubwe and Zimbabwe have been proven to have had Khoi and San people within their royal families through intermarriage. I don't think they were necessarily the founders, but they definitely held positions of powers in places like that. And there's also a controversy around lost cities and towns founded by them in southern Africa, but nothing's been definitively proven, and it could very well be there. There's just like little to no archaeological being done down there in that part of Africa, or most of Africa in general. So
yeah, definitely.
And then also I missed another question from my Davido, the almost great. Do you believe that Leo Africanus went to a house land or even passed Timbuktu himself? I'm asking this because some of the descriptions are either slightly wrong or straight up false. Through my research, this mapping video I did, for example, we ran into this problem. Leo Africanus, though I do believe he did make it there, a lot of his descriptions were probably heavily biased or just poorly researched, because the Songhai, they were having conflicts with the Hausa, and the Songhai were a very proud and egotistical people. Same with the Mali, saying they conquered Jenne. Songhai felt that way with House lands. They went to war and got their ass kicked by the Hausa multiple times, and they didn't want to admit that. So when Leo Africanus visited there, they probably said that the Hausa were under their control, even though they weren't. So as far as they made into Hausa land, as far as I know, based on the research I've compared and we've compared, the farthest that they actually conquered was the Kingdom of Kebi, the farthest west Hausa states, and even that was only temporary, because after they conquered Air with the assistance of the army of Kebi, they didn't share in any of the spoils, so Kebi basically broke free and said, yeah, we don't want anything to do with you anymore, and Songhai could not take them back. So the Hausa were pretty powerful states.
Yeah, I was actually gonna do a video about the Hausa. Like, they're, to me, kind of what I feel about the Songhai. I feel like they had so much potential, man. And if they were just more unified, I guess they seem to value their independence and individualism. So like those city states were very powerful, and they cooperated with each other, but they were still like city states. They were independent for the most part.
Like the Greeks.
Yeah, exactly.
They fought each other a lot, but they unified against in the face of foreign invasion.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Somebody asked about the Mossad states. I think the Mossad states are pretty cool. I love the story of Princess Yanenga. They were pretty powerful. And for a small group, I wouldn't say they're small, but for a kingdom to compete with an empire of various ethnic groups who are more powerful, perhaps had more access to resources and weaponry, whatever, for them to hold their own against Songhai like that, like that's really impressive. So I'm very impressed by Mossad.
Yeah, against the Mali, they pretty much wreaked havoc without pretty much any opposition. That actually led to the collapse of Mali, because they were wreaking havoc on Mali, many of Mali's cities, and the people who were under control of Mali were like, okay, look, part of this deal was I'm subordinate to you, I'm paying taxes to you, but you're going to protect me if people invade us, and Mali was not providing that protection. So that's why a lot of them broke free. The Songhai, on the other hand, wasn't having any of that, and they actually invaded Mosi. They never conquered them, and they actually full-on said, along with other states like Borgu, that conquering them would basically like be a death sentence because there would never be peace. So they pretty much put them in their place and said, hey, stop invading us, and they did stop. But the Mosi states were actually some of the most politically stable states, not just in Africa, but in the world, because of the way their government worked. Even the different kingdoms, despite the fact that they were different kingdoms, they considered themselves the same.
Look, to me, for them to take Timbuktu was very impressive to me.
Yeah.
They took it, they raised it or whatever, like they took Timbuktu. That's very impressive. Yeah. Because there are a lot of different African ethnic groups competing over Timbuktu. So that's amazing to me.
Yeah. Were there any people in Madagascar before the Austronesians? As far as I know, no, there were not. But there is documentation that there were several waves of migration, not just by Austronesians, but by Bantu people as well, that happened over time. Like, apparently the first wave of Austronesians arrived there in the Stone Age, and another wave arrived there in the Iron Age and displaced the Stone Age ones, and then later on Bantu people arrived there as well. Madagascar is a pretty interesting history. I haven't researched it adequately enough to really give you anything super reliable, but I do plan to in the future. Another donation from Snack Crumbs. Thank you for the $5 donation. If you guys could make a monster film based off any African mythical creature, again, and it gets any modern African nation, which would it be? Hold on. If you guys could make a monster film based off any African mythical creature against any modern African nation, which would it be? Are you talking like a Godzilla thing or what? I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to ask in that question.
I think he's just talking about any African mythical creature, like that creature in Congo, I believe, that looks like a dinosaur. I can't pronounce it, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Honestly, I feel like we need to reclaim the griffin, because personally, I believe the griffin came from Africa, specifically the Nile Valley area. I think it was a concept that started there, and then Greeks kind of and other people kind of took it over, I guess. But I think African people and Afro-descended people need to claim the griffin as an African mythological creature.
Yeah, same with zombies. Most people love their zombie movies, but have no idea that it had its origins in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in zombie, or the word zombie actually comes from the word, is believed to come from the word zombie, which I think meant like our gods, or I can't remember exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, KB Titan, for the pronunciation or the name. Nkole Mbembe.
I think I missed a few questions back. Let me scroll up a little bit. Question: how knowledgeable were kingdoms about other African kingdoms? Sorry. Did Mali know about Kewa, and did Benin know about Ethiopia?
Man, those are great questions.
As far as those two particular examples, I have no idea, but I do know the Igbo, for example. Igbo Ukwu, an ancient archaeological site in Nigeria. There were artifacts from Egypt discovered there, and there were glass beads imported from the Middle East discovered there as well. So there's evidence of direct trade with these people. But
I know. Go ahead.
I was saying, as far as definitive, conclusive, they knew about each other, I can't really give you an example. I just know that trade did make its way there somehow in the past, between those places.
Yeah. So as it concerns like actual physical contact or perhaps communication, I know Mali was aware of Kanem Borno. That's the closest or the farthest away that I'm familiar with, because Mansa Sakura, when he went on his Hajj, on his way back, he was wounded, and then the Malayans, I'm assuming his guards or whatever, they took him to Kanem Borno, and then a messenger from Kanem Borno went to Mali and told him that pretty much, I believe the king, Mansa Sakura died or whatever, and they took his body over. So,
well, Titan Tribble, actually one of the From Nothing team members, he actually researched this for us. Mansa Sakura actually made it farther than that. He made it to East Africa, and it's actually theorized that his death was attributed to Afar merchants from like what is now like Ethiopia, or sorry, Afar bandits. And he died he was attempting to establish contact with the Swahili states, actually.
So, oh, really? So he wasn't going to Mecca?
No, he went to Mecca, but during all of that, he was establishing embassies throughout other African kingdoms, as far as East Africa.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I knew he went all the way over there. Yeah, because I think it was either the Ethiopians or the Somalis, one of those groups along the desert region, I guess. I don't know, but they attacked him. Yeah, so I definitely knew he went to East Africa. I don't know if he was aware of any actual kingdoms or empires over there, but I mean, we have to assume he was.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he wouldn't just be like, I wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And yes, as Titan Tribble said, Takwar was its own kingdom. The reason why Takwar became known as a term for West Africans as a whole was because when the first West African kingdom to directly interact with Muslims and adopt Islam was Takwar. Therefore, Takwar became associated with the people south of the Sahara in the early periods of Muslim interaction with West Africa.
Yeah. I think that's what makes them unique as well, because a lot of Africans from Takwar, I pronounce it Takwar, but it might be Takwar as you're saying.
I've seen both, but yeah.
Yeah. They a lot of them joined the Almoravids, and they became a pretty large contingent in their army. And so, yeah, that's why some people be like, oh, the Almoravids are black, blah, blah, blah.
It's because there was 4,000 Takwari soldiers invading Spain with the Almoravids. So I'm sure the Spanish seen the 4,000 black people invading them. They're going to be like, oh, the Almoravids are black. They're invading us. These black people are invading us. I mean, that's gonna be a very big impact to what people are going to think. And they're going to write about what is the most contrasting to what they're used to seeing.
Yeah. But honestly, Jabari, the big thing with the Moors, to me, the Moors ultimately, if you go from their history from the beginning to end, I mean, it was obviously diverse.
Yeah.
But at the core, what represented Moorish power, it was black men, bro. It really was. because they recruited a lot of black men, and they enslaved a lot of black men as well into their armies, into their soldiers, and they used them as an extension of their power. So to me, if the black men would go up and, along with others, of course, but exclusively they would go to, quell rebellions and things of that nature. And a lot of the sultans, they would be guarded by a whole contingent of black guards. And so when the Spanish saw that, they was just like, okay, the Moors, these are Negroes essentially, because when you try and rise up against them, you're gonna see a sea of black men coming towards you. And so that's why in maybe their literature and their statues and stuff like that, they would depict black men as sort of a simple representation of Moorish power.
Yeah, I did notice a lot of European flags had black people too and everything. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say I'm the most well versed in the topic of the Moors, but as far as I'm concerned, the Moroccan dynasties at their core were not black, but they did incorporate a lot of black soldiers. And throughout their history, black soldiers were really important to their military campaigns. Let me get this donation really quick. Matthew Mann, $5. Thank you for the $5. Yep, affirmative. Appreciate the answers. As usual, very well said. Anywho, did the African pygmies have any kinds of places of wonder of their own? Just like with the Khoisan, there's theories that they had cities. Their oral history, a lot of them, their oral history actually says that they founded cities, and they felt like they were becoming too advanced for nature to keep up with. There's an oral history for that. So that they went back to the forest and began and basically retracted back to their hunter-gatherer lifestyles. And I really, really wish I could find the source, but I remember reading something about cities. Cities being discovered with doorways and windows and stuff that were designed for smaller people, which would kind of corroborate that. Yeah,
I hate when that happens, when you've seen it, you read it, and you're going through so many different sources. Like somebody asks you, "Hey, where'd you get this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I saw it. Let me go back. I have to go back in my annals or whatever. I can't just tell you." But yeah, I know exactly how it is. But somebody asked me about the source for the Kilwa video, and off the top of my head, it was probably the Encyclopedia of African History, and the other Encyclopedia of African History and Culture. One of them is by Kevin Shillingsing, and the other one is by Willie Page, I believe. So that's what I use primarily. There are other sources as well, and I'm gonna post it later. But yeah, those were the primary sources for that.
And I think Titan Tribble, if you're still in the chat, I think Titan Tribble is actually the one who showed me that source, so he may be able to answer it for you if he's still in the chat and if he remembers it himself.
Nice.
For my thing about the pygmies. But yeah, were the Medjay a term for Nubian archers? I've never heard that term, but Home Team would definitely know a lot more about that than me.
Yeah. The Medjay were sort of like a group of Nubians in the Sudan or Eastern Sudan area. It wasn't a term for Nubian archers. No, I wouldn't say that. They were just sort of like a group of, basically when you see dark-skinned Egyptian depicted in Egyptian, wall paintings, like they're indistinguishable from maybe the Sudanese. When you see a depiction of, I guess dark-skinned Nubians, archers or whatever, those were the Medjay, because the Medjay, for whatever reason, had a very close relationship with the Egyptians. I don't know why, but those particular Nubians related in a sense to the Egyptians, and they interacted with them, they intermarried with them a lot. So, but they tended to be a lot darker than the Egyptians in general. So they were sort of, I don't want to call them a hybrid, but they were sort of like, they intersected with the other Nubian people and the Egyptians as well. So, but they weren't exclusively, the term. Sure.
You are breaking up a little bit, by the way, Home Team. Hopefully you're in a good spot.
Oh, I was? My bad.
Yeah. I think you're good now.
Okay. I actually have to go because my son is waking up actually. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, I appreciate you joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you. And I'm sure.
Yeah, man, Jabari. Yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm sure the 100 plus viewers, record breaking viewers, also appreciate your presence as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like I really appreciate you having me on, man. Like honestly, and I think this is important for our channels and the diaspora in general. And I really appreciate me and Jabbar definitely appreciate you guys' support, because that's why we're able to create, you know, content and create better content ultimately. So thank you guys so much for the support, and we want to continue moving forward, man. So thanks, Jabbar.
Thank you again, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
All right, man.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too. Peace.
See you. All right, so Home Team himself joined us for an amazing discussion and some amazing Q&As. I hope everybody here enjoyed that, and hopefully we can do it, as I said to him, hopefully we can do it again sometime. And even still, the discussions like these are going to keep happening among me and you guys. So I haven't devised a schedule for it yet, but we're probably going to be having it to where like maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks, something like that. We have some viewers come into Discord with me into a voice channel where we discuss a topic similar to what Home Team and I did, and also have some Q&As and stuff like that. Probably gonna prioritize patrons and members, of course, but that's subject to multiple things. But either way, we're getting these discussions, these live discussions like this one, are gonna happen at a consistent basis. Schedule subject to announcement, nothing in concrete yet. Hopefully that sounds like something you guys are interested in. And again, it is absolutely awesome that we hit so many viewers today. That is a record breaking for us. I think the highest we ever got to was 64. We had 100. We got up to 120, I think, which is crazy. Thanks to everybody for the support. Wait, what's your Discord? Hopefully a moderator can post that in the chat for you. That's the best way to stay updated on all these live stream schedules and everything, by the way. If you're not a member of Discord and you want to know when these live streams are going to be taking place, you'll know in Discord. Always. I'm always very vocal about these live streams in Discord. And on top of that, discussions like these, the ones we just had, happen 24/7. Not in voice, but they happen 24/7 in the text channels. So if you want to geek out on some African history stuff, you can hop right in Discord and get them all the time. If I missed any of your questions, I apologize. I'm sure you can understand why. Yeah, there's a Discord, there's a Twitter, I have the community post thing enabled as well, so I'll try to be more active with that as well. And then every day, as I said, every Monday through Thursday, I'm here live streaming, more than likely gaming at the same time, but I'm here live streaming and discussing African history all the while I'm doing it. Please do not get discouraged when you see gaming. When you see when you pop open my stream and you see me playing Call of Duty, don't feel discouraged. African history is still the core of these streams. The gaming is just something I do while we're having discussions. That's all it is. So please don't get discouraged by that either. Also, I'll come chat with you on Discord. Yeah, Arthur. You've been incognito forever, but yeah, maybe sometime you can join one of the discussions too. Gotta go for now. See you all later. Bye. It was a good chat. Thank you, Matthew Mann, for the joining. Thanks again for the donations, and just in general, always being a positive contribution to the chat. I appreciate that. Should do this more often. I will. As I said, I stream every Monday through Thursday, every day. As far as getting guests in here with me, having discussions and voice chat, that's something that I'm probably gonna incorporate more regularly. It won't be an everyday thing, but it will be more regularly. What does the join do for a subscriber? Join is if you want to support, well, for one, if you want to support the streams, you can join and monetarily fund this content in these live streams. But what it does for you is there's a world building project that we're working on where we're founding a mythical fantasy world based on African cultures and history. And you can be a part of that. You can have your own kingdom, and you can control and immerse yourself in that world and help it develop and grow and evolve if you become a member. So that's what that is something that's still being worked on, but that's what it allows you to do. There's a lot of benefits associated with it, as also as being a member will allow you to partake in these live discussions in the voice chat. That is also another privilege of members. So guest discussions are always welcomed. Yes. But anyway, on that note, our guest has left for now, and I think we reached a good stopping point. It was a great stream, and again, I really appreciate everyone being here. Had a lot of fun. It was a privilege and an honor to have Home Team here present with us, you know, discussing African history and just doing what we both love and want to do and always do. Thank you so much for becoming a member, Snack Crumbs. Appreciate that. You are all, as I said, the benefits of becoming a member. You can partake in the world building, and you can also be eligible to discuss in these live stream discussions. As I said, all that stuff's still subject to change and development. Nothing concrete yet, but it will be happening. Rest assured, the live discussions. Consider what we had with Home Team today as the pilot to these regular live discussions and voice chat with viewers. What is the coin graphic that you use for donations based on? That's based on one of the gold weights of the Ashanti people. Just Google Ashanti gold weights and you'll see stuff like that. And yes, that notification is quite loud. Anyway, I'll see everybody later. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you being here supporting. Thank you again, Snack Crumbs, for becoming a member. Thanks everyone for the donations, and thanks everybody for the hype in general. This is definitely the best, the #1 best live stream I've ever had, and I appreciate Home Team for helping make that happen. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday. Always. See you next time.